All right, I think we should be live. Test. Can you hear me?
Sounding good.
Yep. Sounds good.
All right. So, is there an echo? I feel like I hear an echo.
Nope. Just on your side, I think.
Yeah, just for you, I think.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, I'm joined here with Tupacabra, link in description, and with my boy Terrestrial Material, also link in the description.
Hey.
Doing things, everyone's doing their UFO thing. We're here. This is a topic that, we touched on in the last live stream where this book rollout has just been kind of wild. And in the midst of this book rollout, there's this kind of Elizondo versus
oh, I'm losing red here.
Oh shoot! Sorry, I had something on in the background. I had in the background too. But yeah, the mid book rollout, right? Elizondo's back finally. There's kind of this weird Stratton Elizondo riff that's kind of formed, and it's kind of been perking up throughout the. There's been a few things that we're going to cover that kind of like indicated that this was happening or this was coming. But yeah, I guess we could just start. What are you guys' thoughts on this and like how it kind of all rolled out during the book rollout?
I didn't see it coming. And no idea. And it seems to be like a tiny, like a fracture that's spreading across a lot of parts of this established ufology or UAP effort that's taken place since 2017. If you've noticed, like since 2017, a lot of new names were introduced into the UFO world through this article written by Leslie Kean and Blumenthal with the help of like Chris Mellon and of course Elizondo. But as recently as last week, you have people like George Knapp saying, finally admitting that there were huge inaccuracies in that article and they've never been corrected. And that's a problem. And what those inaccuracies are and what they kind of lead us to believe, I think is kind of shocking. But they seem to stem, all this new talk seems to stem from Stratton being more vocal about exactly his issues. Now, some people have raised issues before, people like Lacatski, and even journalists have been like, where's the proof of any of this stuff? But this is the first time we get a view from Stratton with more personal accusations towards Lue about the thirst for fame, all kinds of stuff. I'm trying to remember what the quote was that Munook used, but it doesn't bode well. And it actually kind of, unfortunately for Lue and perhaps for UFO disclosure, a lot of these things are ringing true to even citizens who've been on social media, who've encountered Lue Elizondo via his sock puppet accounts or the people that seem to kind of insulate him and attack other people, which they claim might be on his behalf or at least in his name, which is awful. So yeah, this new recent like kind of like fracture was first reported on by Greenstreet. I think is the first person who told us in the Spaces about it.
Yeah, that was him. Yep, where he said behind the scenes, he's like, "Do you want a little inside scoop?" Lue is maybe making some claims and taking some credit from people that he shouldn't be, right?
That's right.
And people were like, "Oh, this is dumb drama." Here's my 30,000-foot read on the situation. There's a lot of people around Lue who say that he's kind of a pathological liar. And I will not deny that he has helped get the conversation really far. But he does seem to be kind of lying. And there does seem to be some kind of problems with the way that initial article came out. It's almost like this entire disclosure thing is kind of built on a really faulty foundation. And then that's not even adding in the little hate group harassment that he has that a lot of times was used to prop up this lie that's finally coming to light. And what Tupa did say too that was really important, I thought, was this seems to kind of be like the straw that broke the camel's back kind of moment for Lue in some ways. Maybe not. I think he probably could ride it out. He still is everywhere, right? But like we're seeing names now kind of start to question this who like never would have before and probably would have harassed people before for asking these same questions. Yeah, and also let me shout out some of the chat real quick. Coin Exchange, how's it going, bro? Pete Mitchell, can't wait for this one. Mirza Kavalik, and now let's put on some music too, actually. It's fun to get back in the streaming thing.
What
bro.
are you
you're gonna
feeling?
do-
Upbeat? You
you
feeling
want
Be a
upbeat?
We're
dance
here.
rock. Here we go. While we shout out the chat. That's funny.
Hell yeah. Bringing it back.
Bringing it back. Mirza Kavalik. What else we got here? Jake, not from State Farm. What's the deal with Skyfire News? Is that not a thing anymore? Like I said, we're gonna do a roast of Skyfire News at some point on this channel.
Yeah, we
We're
are.
probably gonna get some streams in. I don't know if you guys saw the latest thing that Lolcow Live is doing, dude. That shit is going off the rails, bro.
Bro, I did not know about that. I didn't know Wings was getting a divorce.
And they're like content farming it, like
Oh,
guys.
oh God.
All right, well, that's for another day. We got Hey Ocean, the only news I watch. Thank you, Joe. A UFO drama timeline would actually be really helpful. It really would be. And again, you'll hear me repeat this all the time. A lot of this quote-unquote UFO drama is actually counterintelligence, tried and true methods that go back decades, pre-internet methods.
Is there a timeline software that's being made right now that could allow for easy implementation?
Oh yeah, I heard there's a prosecutor that really wants to see that timeline.
It's real too. The timeline's real.
Bada Bing says King Milkbart is a really good guy. I know a few prosecutors who don't agree with that. All right, Montezuma says, "Yo, Peppery goes in. Love you, bro. I love this guy. This is a great memer.
What's that,
in the
Pepper?
community." Jess Ness27 shared just now on vetted Discord. Oh, thanks, Jess.
Hell yeah.
Very cool. Heather Birdie, what's good? Welcome, Heather. I don't know
yo.
how to make people mods, but I would love for Heather to be a mod in my live chat. Martin's only. Can you summarize the rift? That's what we're gonna do. Stephen Willens, hello from Disclosure Awareness. Hell yeah. Kelly, what's up? That's a bad kitty. We love you. One of the old Skyfire crew. I think
Hell
that's
yeah.
about it. I need more Yetis. Yes, martinis only. Oh hell yeah. Is that for oh, Felix King, you guys sound like such haters last time. Honestly,
Yeah.
if you're a Lue crew lover and you've been in kind of the Lue cult and have not exposed yourself to any kind of the negative sides of Lue or some of this stuff, it's a little bit of an ontological shock, is it not, that we're witnessing some people? It's like straight up cult dynamics of like, oh, the wool's finally coming down. And if you've only heard positive Lue things and never read the Jeremy McGowan article or didn't follow some of the ways he's lied to people and kind of manipulated people, I could understand why you would view us as haters. But you know what? Here at Red Panda Koala, we're about UFO truth. And we're about seeing
right.
through the counterintelligence bullshit. You
That's
know what I
right.
mean? Yeah. All right, let's continue, bro. We're going to start this thing. I don't even know how to start it. We just got a bunch of slides. I'm glad we're all able to do this.
I was going to say one other thing on this
Yeah,
before
go
we
for
moved on. I just, Stratton, before we, I guess, realized that the book was coming, we did, get the rumblings behind the scenes. I mean, even people like Eric Davis kind of was getting out on Facebook, and he was kind of coming out and showing, saying his piece and everything that was coming along with it. So I just think that Stratton at this point is starting to see maybe that if he was letting kind of Lue run a little bit with some of the stories that weren't his, he's starting to see that he wants to come out now, and that he's going to have to go ahead and try to dial Lue back a little bit on some of the stuff, or else he'll never get the credit, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, okay, well, so there is this thing in the air. Now, I think I'm looking at this a little bit more maybe altruistically from Stratton's view. I might be applying some stuff that might not be there because he's putting out a book and he's going to have a competing narrative. There might be, reasons that are more driven about like getting credit that I'm considering. But if Stratton is indeed a real experiencer, and I have no reason to believe he isn't, and if he was the one that's actually done the things that Lue is saying, and if now what Lue is doing by taking on, the title of some of the stuff that he didn't do and ownership of things he might not really own, the wheels could be coming off pretty soon, because there's always going to be a reporter or someone who's going to look into this and then find out. And the more popular the book gets, the more scandalous, the scandal gets, and it'll be kind of unavoidable. And so he might be just trying to preserve aspects of the reality of the situation that he initially started with, and just abandoning the original idea of having like Lue be the front man of the band. Now like Stratton's gonna have to be the front man or something. I mean, but I don't know if it's all for credit or if it's just to correct the record or if it's for justice. I mean, the things that have been said that allegedly by the Strattons are not nice. They're very much like, this guy's a fraud. Like, those are heavy accusations. You know what I mean? That's like really serious. A fraud? Yelling about this in like a semi-public area? I don't know. I think there might be some principles involved, not just the idea of wanting the credit for something. But I mean, even Greenstreet.
He feels Lue went too far. Took everything too far. Greenstreet, I think, made a really good case for it, where essentially, Lue was allowed to kind of be the face for things and get out there and get in the public, which makes sense. Obviously, the guy can talk really well and tells a good story, and you get a lot of people when you listen to him, you want to believe him, Lue, right? You definitely do. But I guess it just kind of comes down to whether or not you think behind the scenes when you look at Elizondo's background and what he was able to do as far as like provide, money. And I not trying to go too far into this timeline, but just to get into my own thought process on this is you got to believe whether or not you would pick Lue to be a director of something like an ATIP behind the scenes, where he was more about getting the money and moving that stuff around. And he was more of a people person, where Stratton seemed to be way more of a, just a person that understood like the technology, right? Like he could look and back in the day, he would work with the F-18s and the weapons integration that would go along with that. So he knew the technology better, right? He could evaluate threats better. And you got to decide, do you have someone who's the face, be someone who's more charismatic, or would you have it be someone who has more technical knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Good point.
We're going to power through this because we do have quite a little bit of slides with a lot of stuff going on here. So I think the first one is we're just going to start with a little refresher course on both of these guys. So this is Lue. This is 2017. This is when it all starts, right? So let's a little walk down memory lane.
Man team tracked the object for several minutes until it just disappeared. Tonight, CNN has learned the Pentagon had a secretive program to research UFOs like the one Fravor spotted. The project was called the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program, run by an official named Lue Elizondo.
I think this is a national security imperative. We have clear things that we do not understand how they work, operating in areas that we can't control.
A defense official tells CNN the program cost at least $22 million over 5 years before it was shut down in 2012. According to the New York Times and Politico, which first reported this story, tens of millions of dollars for the project were pushed through by former Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid. Those publications say a lot of the money for the Pentagon UFO program went to a company called Bigelow Aerospace, run by a longtime friend of Reid's, Robert Bigelow, a big believer in UFOs. Public records.
Out front now, the former Pentagon military official who ran the covert government program up until this last November.
This is the one that hella got me, by the way. This is the one that hooked me, Lue Crew, like day one. This interview.
Lue Elizondo. Lue, thank you so much for your time tonight. I mean, first, tell us what the purpose of the program was and why it was so secretive.
Sure. The purpose of the program, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, was really designed to do just that. From a national security perspective, identify those things that we see, whether we see them electro-optically, we see them with radar, we see them as eyewitness reports, through a myriad of different ways and avenues that we receive the information, and try to ascertain and determine if that information is a potential threat to national security, in a nutshell.
So what did you find?
Well, we found a lot. I think it's probably been a little bit mischaracterized in some of the social media you see and what people put out, because a lot of times when we don't have a lot of information, we tend to fill in those.
I know you think that the government didn't take the threat seriously enough. So let me just ask you point blank the question. Do you believe that life from somewhere else, while you ran this program, came here, visited, observed?
I will tell you unequivocally that through the observation, scientific methodologies that were applied to look at this phenomena, that these aircraft, we'll call them aircraft, are displaying characteristics that are not currently within the U.S. inventory, nor in any foreign inventory that we are aware of.
So I know you're being clear, but I mean, the answer is yes. I
can't speak on behalf of the government. Obviously, I'm not in the U.S. government anymore. My personal belief is that there is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone.
Right. So pretty early on, day one, kind of the face of the 2017 push, right? He's kind of representing a bunch of people. I remember watching this. This was kind of before I was even like blackpilled on all this stuff. I was just like, holy cow, they're talking about this on like CNN like this, and this guy with a goatee. And do you guys
Big
remember?
moment.
Do you guys
Big
remember
moment.
this moment in time? Take us back,
Yes.
for you guys.
Oh yeah. Go ahead, Tupa.
Well, it was just a big deal. I had been like talking with people like friends and coworkers and stuff, like about this. Like I was the UFO guy in all my friend groups. You know what I mean? Like I was always talking about it, and so I got hit up a lot about the news article, and then like when things like this would come out, people were like, "Did you see this? Who's Lue Elizondo?" It's like, damn, this is crazy. So that's what I recall when I see this particular interview, is getting this stuff sent to me when it was coming out, and like my friends kind of experiencing the shock and being like, "You were right," kind of thing. So that was cool. It was a cool moment.
Yeah, I mean, for me, dude, I've been following this for quite a long time, but I guess a lot of the buildup that really started to get me excited is when Tom DeLonge started coming out in more 2015, 2016. And so like I was looking forward to the Secret Machines book, and I was like hype on that. I pre-ordered that book back in the day, and I just followed this whole train that kind of led up to this 2017 moment. And so when that article came out and then you start to see Lue coming out, you're like, holy, this is really moving. You know what I mean? Like it blew my mind because I mean, I had a sighting prior to this, but at the same time to hear someone come out of the government and talk like this again, it was pretty interesting,
Yeah, definitely cool, definitely powerful, and definitely in that first thing, they even say it there, right? Director of ATIP program, you know what I mean? And again, like, it sucks, honestly, like, there's an argument you see, like, oh, what does it really matter? But it's like, no, like, his coworkers are accusing this guy of being, like, a pathological liar, basically. And, I've seen him engage with some of the worst people I've ever seen on the internet to kind of, anybody who spoke out against this kind of met this really horrible force that even the people that we're going to cover at the end of this that are starting to, like, they all acknowledge it. But we'll get there when we get there. We're going to go next to, this is when Jay Stratton came out. I think it was like 2022, might have been 2023. But then we learned about this guy, Jay Stratton, and this was apparently Lue's boss back at OSAP ATIP, right? So we just learned about Lue in 2017 and ATIP and this program to investigate UFOs. And then we meet Jay Stratton. So let's just kind of watch this, one of the other big, obviously, characters in this like little divide going on right now.
What does our government know about the UFO mystery? One longtime intelligence official has seen more of the Pentagon files than anyone.
He is the only military man to work on 3 major UFO investigations, including one based here in Las Vegas. The official is Jay Stratton, and he has never spoken in public or even granted an interview, that is, until he sat down with our very own George Knapp of our 8 News Now investigators.
When a mysterious object dubbed the Tic Tac UFO befuddled U.S. Navy aviators and sensors off the coast of San Diego in 2004, the incident was dropped, not investigated. The first in-depth probe happened 5 years later under the auspices of a then secretive program called OSAP, the Advanced Aerospace Weapons Systems Application Program, created by the Defense Intelligence Agency with black budget funding spearheaded by Nevada Senator Harry Reid. Tic Tac was the first UFO incident tackled by OSAP and its contractor, Las Vegas aerospace pioneer Robert Bigelow. The report was released by us in 2018. Jay Stratton is the man who wrote it.
Every time I've done anything related to UAP or UFO has been my job. And what I mean by that, I didn't really have a passion growing up. I didn't have all the books. I didn't watch all the TV shows. I stepped into a job at the Defense Intelligence Agency where some things came across the desk.
From 2008 until 2021, pretty much everything UFO related came across Jay Stratton's desk. He made the decision to ditch the term UFO and use UAP instead, unidentified aerial phenomena. Stratton worked at the highest levels of naval intelligence, then was loaned to the DIA, where he excelled at reverse engineering. He and his colleague, rocket scientist Dr. James Lacatski, kept seeing reports of unknown craft, but learned there was no central location where such mysteries were being analyzed.
All the stories you hear, right? There's probably the office that deals with this. And as we tried to find that office, we found nothing.
So they created one. Stratton's colleague, Dr. Lacatski, had been reading about a UFO hotspot nicknamed Skinwalker Ranch. After a visit to the Utah property, Lacatski pitched the creation of a formal investigation. Harry Reid agreed to fund it. Robert Bigelow landed the contract. Stratton consulted with the OSAP program and then with its successor, ATIP. When the head of ATIP, Lue Elizondo, resigned and revealed its existence to the New York Times in 2017, Stratton was asked by his boss if he'd jump back in and cobble together a new program. He did. And that effort was eventually formalized by Congress with a new name, the UAP Task Force. One of Stratton's projects was the creation of a comprehensive but classified briefing that included UAP videos and photos collected by the military. Most of those images are still unreleased, but a few, objects encountered off the East Coast and even stranger objects buzzing Navy ships on the West Coast, were leaked, then publicized. Stratton scoffs at the debunkers who tried to explain them away as flares or drones or birds.
Splashed. So there's a lot of cleanup to do when you have a lot of these people saying it's birds or whatever they're saying. It's frustrating because you know the rest of the story and you can't tell the rest of the story.
In 2021, Stratton left the task force, but his work formed the basis of a stunning report to Congress. Stratton's chief scientist was Dr. Travis Taylor, now well known for his television appearances. Of 144 incidents investigated by the task force, 143 were considered unidentified. Stratton and Taylor now work for Radiance Technologies, a defense contractor with offices in 17 states, including Nevada. When Stratton and Taylor showed up in the audience of an Alabama UAP conference last summer, UFO circles were abuzz with questions about what their employer might be up to. Filmmaker Jeremy Corbell brought his cameras to record our interviews. Stratton admitted there are still more questions than answers.
Probably remember the infamous quote from Congress that, let's hope it's aliens.
George Knapp, 8 News Now.
What does our government...
Shouts out George Knapp, great reporting there. Do you guys remember when Stratton came out? What was that vibe like? And yeah,
Flew under my radar. Didn't notice it at all.
Because you have Lue on one hand, kind of everywhere, and shouts out Lue. He's kind of a PR master, straight up. Him and Ashton Forbes, they know how to, you know what I mean. Lue's everywhere right now. I feel like I'm about to see Lue. I don't even know, on like Kung Fu Panda 4 or something like that. Stratton, on the other hand, more low key, right? More kind of behind the scenes. As we heard there, he was involved with all the UFO stuff. He was brought back for the UAP task force. And here's a little moment to kind of show. I'm working on a Grush documentary right now too, while I'm also wrapping up the Spielberg one. So I'm going back through all the UAP TF, all the formation of it, all that. I'm just kind of refreshing myself on that. And yeah, so he was kind of running the UAP task force, which was like the first UFO program since ATIP, OSAP, and this is the one that Grush was on. And the UAP task force kind of reminds me of Project Signed, Project Grudge to Project Blue Book, where the UAP task force had like Grush and Stratton and Travis Taylor and all these kind of UFO, people that are open to the idea, right? And then it was under the Navy, and then after the UAP task force report, and they were like, a lot of this stuff is fucking crazy. And the UFO community was very much hype. Like that was a report where it was like, oh, this is lit. It wasn't like their historic report. But after that, they kind of moved the whole thing under OUSDI, I believe, away from the Navy. And that's when you kind of get Aerokirk patch. So that's just a little backstory there. But as for what we're concerned with is, Jay Stratton, UFO guy, Intel guy, Navy guy, in the mix for a while. He was part of the reason OSAP got started. Also an experiencer, right? So yeah, what do you guys think?
Yeah, no, I agree with Tupa. I mean, not completely under the radar for me. Like I heard about the interview when it came out, but let's be honest, man. I mean, back around this time, I think everybody was just kind of like Elizondo crazy, right? Like we were just watching every interview he did. Like the focus was just so on him, and you didn't get a whole lot about Stratton, right? It's taken a little bit of time, and that's another thing is why whenever we get the book, it's going to be interesting to get more of that backstory. But yeah, he kind of floated under the radar. I agree, Tupa.
All right, continuing along. So that was just a little bit of backstory on some of these guys. They're entering on the scene. Stratton was Lue's boss. So this is this is like kind of where the root of this discrepancy is kind of Lue has had a changing timeline of what he himself says, right? So people want to be like, oh, you're a drama for trying to figure this stuff out, but it's like, even by going on Lue's own words, we don't even like, what am I supposed to believe, and why is it drama for me to ask like which Lue am I supposed to believe, right? So we'll just read through some of them we got. In his tweet, May 2021, he says, "It has been brought to my attention that despite my constant assertion in the media about my non-involvement in OSAP, some are under the false impression that I was part of it. For the record, again and again, I was not a part of OSAP!" Exclamation point. And then a year later, in his ICIG complaint, he writes, and people are always like, well, he wouldn't lie to the ICIG. He writes, "In my new role as director for ATIP and OSAP." Right? So do you guys see this discrepancy?
Damn.
He's saying 2021, sure. I was not involved at all. And then to the ICIG, he's saying my new role as the director of OSAP. Like, that's weird.
What the hell? Like, this is really weird. I've seen actually several examples of this. Like, not this, I mean, of things like this. It just seems so weird to have these competing statements so close. This isn't a 10-year period, right? This isn't like, 10 years ago it was a little more confusing. This is like time after time. It's a flip-flop between, it's almost meant to purposefully blur the border between both programs and to marry them together. And that's, I think if that's the case, there should be other instances of that exact same strategy with other things, like how Lue always attaches himself to David Grush.
And you thought that was bad, but that was a year. This is the same week of his book rollout, literally like, about a month ago now?
Yeah, it was really bad, yeah.
This is the week of his book rollout. He has another one within a 5-day period, bro. Not even a year difference. So his book comes out, chapter 4, The Secrets Within. The new job at OSAP ATIP was like one of those Russian dolls, blah, blah. He goes into about like how he worked there, right? OSAP. The new job at OSAP/ATIP. He says, my new role as director of ATIP and OSAP. And then once all this stuff starts boiling out with Stratton and Lue, because I guess, and we're going to cover that a little bit, but I guess what happened was Lue's kind of been lying, and here's the gist. Lue's been lying a lot since 2017, but everybody was just kind of like, for the good of disclosure, like, let's just not address that now.
Yes, I remember that. Like, that's such a weird cope. Okay, so, dude, but yeah, my new job at OSAP/ATIP was like one of those Russian dolls, yada yada. Soon after I started working with them, so it goes from my new role as director for ATIP and OSAP. Then the next thing is my new job at. So he's like, now it's being downgraded. And what's this thing at Coast to Coast? This is the same month. This is just last month.
Yeah, so in his book, he writes the new job at OSAP ATIP. And then once all this kind of blows up, because as I was saying, so when Lue when the book came out, I guess Stratton was like, all right, this is too much. So then there was all this hoopla that we're going to cover, but basically it culminated him going on Coast to Coast and saying, no, I was not a part of OSAP. Within a week of his book coming out saying he had a new job at OSAP.
So the book comes out, and in the book, he says, I had a new job at OSAP. Then he goes on to Coast to Coast
he called James Lacatski and said, I want the job. Yeah.
Oh, count me in or whatever, right? That's what he says.
Yeah,
count me in.
Yeah, 100%,
okay.
Yeah.
Then he after the book comes out, that's written inside the book. It's written in the book that's what his job was. He goes on to say, no, I was not part of OSAP. I made that clear in my book.
Right, and it's like you didn't make it clear in the book. You actually said you were.
It blew my mind.
Isn't this weird, guys? What are we witnessing here? This is crazy.
A liar. Like, the only thing that I could say, like, this is a flip flop of a liar. Like it's manicuring the truth, quote unquote, per person you tell. Right, so whoever you're talking to, you're going to change the facts. You're going to bend it one way or the other. But this is it's so weird.
The only other side of it that I can think of, Tupa, is that maybe him and Stratton behind the scenes were talking. And like, if you look at the tweet from 2011, or excuse me, the ICIG complaint from 2022, excuse me, like he could have said, they could have had like an agreement behind the scenes where Stratton was like, yeah, just say you're the director, dude. Just say you're the director. Remember our war plan. You're going to get out there and you're going to stir everybody up. And then and then he says too much. And then Lue goes, wait, you told me to say that. Now I said this. Now I got to go back. Like, that's possible, I guess.
It's possible. I think what happened is, based on the totality of the facts, I think what's most likely is that Lue, in the hot seat, said this a couple times and did it to impress whoever he was talking to, and that kind of freestyle fucked him up. Sorry for the language, but I think he got himself in the hot water, and why would you gallivant around as the director of a program when you were brought in at a smaller level? And here's the answer. Because he's the only one in the seat. He's the only one in front of the camera. If he was in front of the camera with Lacatski next to him, you think he's going to say any of this stuff? If you know what I mean? I think like a lot of the things that he led journalists and like other people to believe, like, whoever he was talking to in back channels, do you think that it was like Stratton's goal, or this group? Do you think it was really their goal to be so involved with social media, or do you think that was a personal project that Lue took on himself?
I certainly think Lue took on social media and everything he was doing on himself. I think when he left TTSA, when they kind of booted him out of there, that was kind of the point. Like, this book has been on his docket for a really, really long time, and I think he wanted to kind of build up his following as he went along, for sure. No, I'm just giving the other angle, dude. I mean, I definitely agree with what you're saying. I think he did just kind of talk too much, for sure. But I'd like to give the other side too,
No, it's totally possible that it was like, hey, just say this, go on there and say this. But they would have had to have cleared that with Lacatski, and if Stratton or anyone was like helping Lue, encourage him to clearly obfuscate and blur these lines between not only his role, between a contractor versus the director. But also blur the line between both programs. Like, it's almost as if we're supposed to believe, because everything's kind of blurry, my natural instinct is to say they're the same program and that Lue must have had a high position in it. Otherwise, why would I hear it so much from so many different angles?
Yeah,
right?
It's really weird. And let's just continue along a bit, because there's a lot of, I think once we get into some of the more timeline-y stuff, it'll foster some good combo. But
cool. Yeah, this one just hit me. This one hit me crazy.
Oh, this is crazy. This is the source of a lot of it. And again, like I said, like, people want to call us drama, but it's like, dude, we're just trying to understand his own words, right? Like, this isn't like, I'm literally trying to understand what the hell this guy's saying, right? Like,
and it's not nitpicky at all. It's not nitpicky. It's like the program that you're saying you ran is very important. Its existence is very important to the conversation. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. Your role in that program is also very important. Otherwise, we're talking under, am I talking to a grunt? Am I talking to the director? Like, what kind of questions are you going to ask? And he's constantly back and forth between those two very different facts. And that's not great. That's not going to help anyone get to the bottom of anything. It's going to make it much harder.
All right, so we're going to continue along. So now we're going to kind of, this is a little slide from the Sky Parties, but Stephen Greenstreet's kind of a big player, especially in this little beat divide kind of going on. He was the media darling of this whole group. There you see him interviewing Lue Elizondo and Eric Davis, one of the only Eric Davis interviews. Really talented director from the New York Post. And actually last night in his space, we were going over his resume. One of the craziest resumes in all of ufology, right? And I'll just say it, why not?
Eric Davis?
No, Greenstreet.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Raised Mormon, like super, I think, like not just like your everyday Mormon, but like a next level kind of more culty Mormon. And then he leaves that, and if I'm not mistaken, he does like a kind of groundbreaking documentary about Mormonism and like immediate post 9/11. He was also actually at 9/11. Did you guys see that too, or something like that, where he filmed a bunch of people that day? Very interesting. And then what else did he do? He worked for the State Department for a bit, which he said, and people kind of always like to throw this in his face as like, oh, he's a paid shill today, but I didn't necessarily think that. But he was making like, I guess, government propaganda for like the Middle East to like America in like 2003. Then he went on to be like Kesha's tour guide, I think, or something like that. He had some affiliation with Kesha and then he was doing some like Wolf of Wall Street or Occupy Wall Street coverage. Anyways, he eventually lands on the UFO beat, and he's a pretty talented editor, filmmaker. And he was kind of like the guy for Lue Elizondo, Eric Davis, Chris Mellon. Like, I'd say even more so now than Matt Ford is. Matt Ford is more along the lines of the Jimenez thing, but this guy was kind of in the James Fox camp of that group, right? Like, he's putting out these really well produced things. Mellon Elizondo had his direct line, kind of helping him shape what his episodes were going to be about. You know what I mean? Like, pretty in depth. And nowadays people know him as a really big debunker, but he was like all about it back in the day. So that was just kind of to like say who he is, because we're going to hear a lot of information from him throughout this stream, but also let's hear him talk about what caused him to flip.
I got into the.
I'm sorry. Okay. So this
solid DJ skills right there. I love that.
This is Stephen Greenstreet explaining why he flipped kind of from believer to, and it ties right into this question of like, what did Lue actually do? And hear him say that like once he started asking these questions, the Lue camp started being mean to him. I believe that's the quote he uses. And Greenwald has also, and here's a quote. This is from him today, right? I'm just going to leave it up there. Some of the same people who viciously attacked me and others for pushing certain questions and for asking about blatant inconsistencies with various claims are now preaching about how it's healthy to ask questions and how they've done it all along. Dumb kids, go sit down. So honestly, I think both of these guys are kind of having a little bit of a victory lap moment, because they both raised these questions early on, like 2021, 2022. And they're both really targeted, I feel like, by Lue's little fan club that he's now publicly disavowing. But let's just watch this to see what caused Greenstreet to go from like true believer to debunker extraordinaire.
The UFO game back in spring 2019. So that would be, around 18 months after this big bombshell story started and the snowball started down the hill. And I mean, honestly, how the basement office came about was a random, like, statistician, an analytics person came up to the video team and they said, hey, like, this UFO story, people are searching for UFO stuff. Like, maybe you should do something in video about UFOs ongoing. So they came to me and they said, pitch us an idea. And I didn't want to do like a History Channel show where it was like all these recreations and like gravitas narration. So my thought was just two dudes sitting at a desk talking about facts and evidence about UFOs. That was it. And when it came to me, up until that point, I was just a spectator. I was just a spectator to the New York Times article. And I hadn't dug into any of this. I just took it at face value that what everyone in the media was saying, at least the basics, were true. I was asked, for our show, we should get our own Pentagon statement. So rather than saying CNN reported the Pentagon said, or the Times reported the Pentagon said, let's be able to say the Pentagon told us. So I was like, yeah, okay, great. Reached out to the Pentagon, and then bam, I get two bombshells in the same email. I didn't think I was going to get anything new at that point. It's 18 months into this story. I'm just like, la-di-da, like, hey, Pentagon, just want a statement or about ATIP and Elizondo, thanks. And then they write back saying, ATIP did investigate UAP and Elizondo had no responsibilities with ATIP. And so just right off the bat, it was a very like head shaking moment where how is it possible? How is it possible that 18 months into this, some random dude in the basement of the New York Post sends off a generic email and gets two bombshells? Why didn't anyone else ask about this? We first reached out to Elizondo. I didn't. We had like a talent outreach person at the Post.
Okay.
Whose talent was finding talent, getting to their representatives, getting them on the phone. And she said that she got Elizondo on the phone and he was talkative and happy to talk. And hell yeah, let's do this. I'll do an interview with you guys. Woo! And then that got shut down like overnight. The PR firm handling TTSA or at least the History Channel show. It was a big PR firm. They emailed me and they're just like, we understand you want to talk to Elizondo. What about? And like from there, it was just me and the PR firm. And, you know, I had this girl call Elizondo back and it was like not happening. And this PR firm was like, what do you want to know? And I was like, well, I just got this statement from the Pentagon that says Elizondo had nothing to do with ATIP. And they replied, he'll talk to you off record about that. And I was like, well, I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in off record. I want a response, and I would like it from him. And they were like, nope, that's not going to happen. And then they copied and pasted Carrie DeLong's statement about, you know, he started in 2010 and ATIP and all that stuff. And I was like, that's great. But the Pentagon is saying the opposite of that. Like, can I get better? And then they got like angry with me. This PR firm, they're like, what's your angle here? It doesn't sound like what, like they got really defensive. And then when it became apparent I wasn't getting anything else.
Okay, so do you guys remember this? Because I think a lot of people know that like Stephen Greenstreet like had a flip, right? But I don't know if people remember. I've like actually heard him say like what it was, and that it was like so tied into this Lue Elizondo, did he run ATIP, did he not thing, right? You get what I'm saying here? What are your guys' thoughts on this?
I think you're right.
Yeah, this interview happened like 2-3 years ago, I think, and you know, and also maybe if you guys want to speak on this too, both of these guys, like I said before we start the clip, they've been talking about this specific thing that everyone in the community is talking about now. Like, what did Lue actually do at ATIP? You know what I mean? That we have people like, again, not just us, not just like streamers, like Eric Davis, James Lacatski, Jay Stratton. You know, people that work with Jay Stratton calling Lue a pathological liar. You know what I mean? So yeah, both these guys were on the beat. They were both heavily had their reputations tarnished for being on this beat.
They had to become like they had to like volunteer to become the wet blankets, right? Like the pariahs, because they were asking a question. And now here's like the main tool behind it. It was the ability to blend Lue Elizondo with disclosure itself, so that questioning Lue was in a way stifling disclosure. That was the sentiment early on. And there was this reaction to the kind of like the thought leaders within ufology on Twitter were like, they were lock and step with this stuff. You know, like their praising of Lue and their elevation of Lue Elizondo without asking tough questions led to this slippery slope. And I think it even might have also led to the ostracization of the people who were calling this out early. You know, the idea was to stick your head in the sand and just let Lue say whatever he wanted. Let the little gang on Twitter do whatever they wanted to do. Let the narrative, let them just kind of lay the groundwork down because they were the only ones talking, and he was the loudest voice in the room, and he was getting interviews, and he was coming across professional. So like, you know, it was that, or we go back to Tom DeLonge, and no one wanted that. So Lue represented like a whole new chapter. But these tough questions were around early on, and they just weren't considered.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, let's be honest, man, a lot of that narrative and that feeling of, you know, you're going to get attacked if you go against Lue, that's still been kind of the thing until a little bit recent, right? It's been since this book and some of the more things that have been coming out lately with his statements that you start to see more of the community kind of starting to turn on Lue a little bit, man. It's interesting. Everyone's kind of, it's interesting, Red, that you pulled this clip, because when you pull this clip and you watch this, you really start to see the beginning and just how different things would have been if everyone just kind of would have looked at the facts at the start, right? How different things could have been.
Yeah, and then just said, you know what? No, like we kind of demand these answers from Lue. Like, you know, like Lue, if we get you on an interview, we're going to ask you about this stuff. Like, what do you got to say for it? You know, and as recently as this week, what he said was, he said, "I have the undeniable proof that I had these roles in these programs."
Yeah, we got that. It was,
and it's like, dude, if we would have got him to say that 2-3 years ago, 4 years, then we wouldn't be in this position right now.
He wouldn't be there either, you know.
You know, and exactly.
So weird
because
hold the community hostage. Like, I have this information. Well, let's wait till we get there for that.
Cool.
But it's fucking, it's crazy, man. But here's a little edit Greenstreet. Kind of like the one I did. Just
this is wild.
Yeah.
Part of OSAP. I've made it very clear in my book.
I was recruited into a strange and highly sensitive U.S. intelligence program. This job transformed my life.
No, I was not part of OSAP. I've made it very clear in my book.
Jay and Rosemary's team needed a senior intelligence officer to set up counterintelligence and security for one of their programs. Jay explained that he had helped create something called the OSAP, Advanced Aerospace Weapons Systems Application Program. They had come to recruit me.
No, I was not part of OSAP. I've made it very clear in my book.
I met Dr. James Lacatski. In a calm voice, he told me OSAP needed a senior counterintelligence agent to lock down all intelligence about the program. Jim Lacatski formally asked me to handle the counterintelligence and security for the program. I phoned Jim over the secure line and accepted the role. Count me in.
Dr. James Lacatski, he was just pointing out you weren't really a big part of OSAP.
No, I was not part of OSAP. I've made it very clear in my book.
The new job at OSAP, soon after I started working with them, Jay and Jim began briefing me on the program in a skiff.
No, I was not part of OSAP. I've made it very clear in my book.
The new job at OSAP,
no, I was not part of OSAP.
Started working with them.
No, I was not part of OSAP.
Formally asked me to.
No, I was not part of OSAP.
I was recruited.
No, I was not part of OSAP.
Count me in.
No, I was not part of OSAP.
We all want to be Jim.
Great. That was great. I didn't watch
Pretty
it.
wild at it, dude.
I wanted to wait. I didn't realize how like kind of like schizo got at the end there. I was laughing my ass.
Yeah, he kind of lost the trail towards the end. Dude, gloves are off.
But a great another resource of just kind of showing these discrepancies, bro. And it's like it's crazy that people want to get mad at us for being like, these discrepancies are real. Like, what are we supposed to do about it? Like, we're just supposed to act like it's not there.
That's what they want us to do. Certain people literally want the entire community and the world to pretend like these discrepancies don't exist so that we can just follow along and continue to praise this dude when we haven't gotten a single solid answer about what he's been doing in 7 years. August 25th, 2024, James Lacatski, the actual director. Lue Elizondo was not involved in OSAP. But in his book, he clearly says it. My new job at OSAP. He implies the job, working for the job, taking the job.
Dude, this is wild. All right, let's continue live. There's so much stuff to cover, bro. All right,
dude,
let's
this
see.
is so weird. The job thing
Jeremy
is
McGowan.
so crazy.
Okay, so this is when the first little hints of this riff that I picked up on. So, okay, we got Jeremy McGowan here on the left. And then, so he's one of these people who got close to Lue Elizondo. And if you think we're a Lue hater and you haven't read the McGowan articles, I just hate to break it to you. You're just like uninformed on the matter. And I get why you would think we're a Lue hater. But he's one of these people who gets close to Lue. And basically, he kind of was one of the first whistleblowers of like, something's not right here. Lue is surrounding himself with like damaged people. Lue is lying about kind of dumb things. Like Lue's a remote viewer. Lue's kind of all this stuff, right? So he writes these articles that I got a link in that thing. It gets lambasted by the Lue cult. All the typical moves we see, you know, harassed, his family harassed, try to get his job fired and whatnot. Sorry, I had a little bit of a burp there. So he this is about a year ago now. He sees Jay Stratton at this UFO conference. And he recounts a conversation there. And I think this is really important to listen to for a few reasons. This is when we first hear that Jay Stratton, any kind of inkling that he's kind of over this whole Lue dynamic.
And wait, when was this recorded? What's the date on this?
This is, I want to say last September, like honestly, probably about a year ago today, like about September 2023. Oh, and I didn't include this. Maybe I should have, but like, at the hearing last year, the Grush hearing, Lue and Jay Stratton both put out a statement together. And like, we've been wanting this forever. This is awesome. Just kind of like burnout. And then so this is only like 2 months after that. So I should have included that, but whatever. But the other reason why I think this is really good to watch, and I think there's all this questions like, what the hell did Lue actually do at ATIP, OSAP? I think Jeremy McGowan's breakdown of here, because I think he recounts it exactly as Jay Stratton said. I think this is probably closest to what Lue actually did. So we're going to listen to this for one, like I said, what did Lue actually do at ATIP, OSAP, blah, blah, blah. And then two, to hear that this whole idea of he's tired of cleaning up loose poop. And actually, there's another third thing in here that I think is there's really important to take away from this is you hear how Stratton and I imagine Lue, how these counterintelligence dudes view the media and how they use the media to get their goals, even to people as high as like generals, right? This is another important dynamic, and this will probably cross over into some of the Swan stuff and how we kind of see the Lute cult kind of doxing whistleblowers almost as a to get something else to happen. You know what I mean? Like, let's get this whistleblower to go public now because we want them to, even if they're not comfortable, even if their
that's going to be
ready.
wild.
You know
that's going to be wild.
So let's just watch this clip and
recounts a conversation with Jay Stratton about McGowan's articles and Lue Elizondo.
Furthermore, Stratton also said, and this is a quote, this is not a paraphrasing, he goes, "I've gotten tired of cleaning up Lue's shit." The next day, because we knew that Stratton was there, I basically cornered Stratton in the main ballroom of the conference.
Yeah.
And I walked up to him, and
I can just imagine you. Hey, come here. Just
well, no, I stood behind me. I think he was talking to James Keenan at the time.
Okay.
And James had a booth there. Stratton was standing there talking to James. Stratton's wife was about 3 or 4 paces behind Stratton, and I just stood there and listened for a few minutes, and then I just tapped Stratton on the shoulder, and I was like, "Hey, I don't know if you know who I am." I introduced myself. He goes, "Yeah, I know who you are." And I was like, "Okay, the only reason I'm talking to you is because I wrote these series of articles on Lue." He goes, "I'm aware." And I said, "I just want to know if I'm on the mark, if those were legitimate experiences that I had, or what your take is." And I will preface this by saying, I asked Stratton for a picture. He allowed me to take a picture of him, and he asked that the picture not be posted on social media. And I have not posted the picture on social media. He did not ask me to not divulge our conversation on social media. He only asked me not to post the picture. Because at the time, I think it was timing context, Stratton wasn't known to be at the conference. He was there with Travis Taylor at the conference. Anyway, when Stratton replied to me about Lue, he told me exactly what Lue did with ATIP. And he said it wasn't Lue's program.
In other words, what Lue's job was.
He told me that Lue never ran ATIP. Now, I will say that Stratton did speak as if ATIP was an actual program, but he never confirmed nor denied that it was. But he said it was not Lue's program. He said it was his program. He told me that he selected Lue because of Lue's knowledge of people and other programs. And I'm paraphrasing this. I'm not saying an exact quote because I didn't take notes, but I'm paraphrasing this from memory. Stratton said that he chose Lue to bring access to ATIP of other programs. I was like, what do you mean? And this is where I'm paraphrasing. He goes, and again, not a direct quote, don't hold me to this, but this was the gist of what Stratton was talking about. For example, if ATIP was looking at an incursion of Chinese drones over, let's say the USS Roosevelt or something like that. And there is another department within the DoD that has that information. And ATIP did not have access to that information, and they couldn't put two and two together. They couldn't do a full analysis on the case because they didn't have access to that information. Stratton would pick up the phone. He would call Lue. Lue would make an introduction to the person that ran that operation, and then Stratton would have access to the information that he needed. Lue did not research, according to Stratton, Lue did not research UFOs or aliens or anything on behest of ATIP. Lue was a facilitator of introductions.
And we've heard him say that himself. We've heard him say he's not in the UFOs, never has been, never will be. He's a counterintelligence, counterinsurgency guy.
But that came from Stratton. Stratton told me that Lue did not run ATIP. Furthermore,
let's just pause there because that's the first kind of thing Lue's role. What do you guys think of that understanding of like Lue's role in relation to that program? I think
makes sense. Yeah.
He's overstated it so much, if that's the case. Like, criminally overstated his role.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's like it's just, for instance, like the interloper program that Lue talks about in the book. I mean, at the end of the day, it was really Stratton's idea for that program, or not the program, but the operation. And it was all about Stratton going up to the J2 and trying to get that cleared, right? Lue always kind of put himself in he never really put himself in the driver's seat in a lot of his book like that. So when you look at that, it makes sense. You know, he was the money guy, he was the face guy. You know, he would get the access they needed for other programs. He's a charismatic guy, and he had the access that way. It makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, and let's continue along. So that's the first point. Like, that's his role, and I to me it makes sense too. That's kind of like what his role would be. Now we get into the whole like I'm tired of cleaning up Lue's stuff, and again, we're kind of going through the timeline here. This is pre-book rollout before we kind of get into like what's happened since the book rollout. But these were the first little inklings that something's going on in the Stratton Lue camp, and yeah.
Stratton also said, and this is a quote, this is not a paraphrasing. He goes, "I've gotten tired of cleaning up Lue's shit." But at the same time, he went on to say, Lue does really necessary work that I need him to do. And he wasn't talking in past, he was talking in present. And that was this year. This wasn't, prior to him leaving in 2017 or whenever he left. That was this year, right? Stratton said, Lue does work I need him to do. And I asked Stratton what he meant by that. And I prefaced it by saying, why is all of this going out to podcasts? Why is it going to social media? Why is it, what is happening?
This is that media thing I was talking about.
And he says, and this is paraphrasing, he says, when I need something done, if I can't get it done by direct ask, I have to go out and use the media. And he says, I use the legitimate media. I don't use the Daily Mail, or I don't use Liberation Times. I use the legitimate media.
He was on the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch.
Well, he goes, I use it to embarrass the people that denied me access to what I need access to. And I took that to mean that what we're seeing in the media isn't necessarily true. It's what Stratton and whomever Stratton was working with or for or beside of, they would craft, they would put it together, and then some general somewhere is getting a call from a congressman saying, what the hell is going on with these werewolves? And it embarrasses the shit out of the general, and he doesn't want it. And then he picks up the phone and he's like, okay, Jay, cut it off. I'll get you the information that you need. Just pull that story. Don't talk about it.
I'm going to stop that clip there because we do have a lot to go through. But that kind of gives you the gist of like, these guys use the media to embarrass people to get their means, even if it's a general, you know what I mean? And we've kind of seen this. We see Lue, and he even referenced it, I think, on one of these podcasts. They did it to Lue's old boss, Harry Reid, or Gary Reid, whatever his name is. They had kind of a hit piece in, what was it, The Debrief, So to me, like, it just kind of shows the way these counter intel guys view the media landscape. And like, how it can be used and manipulated to achieve their goals. Do you guys hear?
Yeah,
you guys
it's a
get what I'm
weapon.
saying on
Yeah,
that?
they weaponize the media. That's like one of the weird things that these intelligence agents are doing, is they know how to work the media. They know how to like create like fake causes and like wrap somebody up in weird shit for political gain. Super strange. Not
What do you
actually,
guys
it does,
think?
it's not even strange. It makes perfect sense, but it's unfortunate when when you look at it through this lens. You know, like a lot of this stuff that we're doing, a lot of the narrative control in ufology has been about controlling media, weaponizing media content, that kind of thing.
Well, yeah, it just goes to show you, if you could do it on a large scale, you could definitely do it on a smaller scale. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and what do you guys think? There's a lot of comments where we're like, "Oh, Jeremy McGowan's lying." Like this is just a straight up lie. I think we're gonna see some evidence of like, no, there's actually, a lot of corroborating. This is the first time we kind of hear this story, but we start to hear it from more and more people, even Eric Davis, even kind of UFO Joe. But yeah, I guess we'll continue along here.
This type of criminal.
So then the next kind of big escalation in this whole thing that I noticed was about a month after this conversation. So this is like last December. Danny Sheehan, who is Lue Elizondo's lawyer, begins to publicly accuse Jay Stratton, Lue Elizondo's old boss, of taking millions of dollars from basically like Majestic 12 to maintain the cover up. So let's watch this real quick.
Self-dealing that these aerospace industries are engaged in, and what they're doing is they're bribing. Not only they're hiring the people, offering them hundreds of thousands of dollars as consultants to come over and help support their ability to keep this secret. You know, they've hired guys like Jay Stratton. They've hired guys like Travis. They've hired people like and others to come in and just take hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to be on their team to keep this secret.
So yeah, pretty powerful stuff. And I kind of want to, a reason why I show that other clip right before this one too is because that whole like the way that you heard Jeremy McGowan, how they play the media to embarrass people. I think what we're starting to see now is both of these intel dudes who like, this is their playbook, how they do it, they're doing it. Like even that clip we saw with Lue reviews, like of course Stratton knew that Jeremy McGowan was going to say this on some media platform, right? And it was going to get out. I think 100% he wouldn't have told him anything if he didn't want it out. And I think we're going to see that more with UFO Joe and some of these other people coming up. But do you guys see this? I see it as kind of an escalation in this rift for Lue Elizondo's lawyer to publicly accuse his old boss of taking millions of dollars to maintain the cover-up. Let's just run it back one more time.
This type of criminal self-dealing that these aerospace industries are engaged in, and what they're doing is they're bribing. Not only they're hiring the people, offering them hundreds of thousands of dollars as consultants to come over and help support their ability to keep this secret. You know, they've hired guys like Jay Stratton. They've hired guys like Travis. They've hired people like and others to come in and just take hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to be on their team to keep this secret.
All right, so let's kind of dissect this a little bit. This is a big claim from Danny Sheehan, right? Iran-Contra Danny Sheehan, you know what I mean? To publicly accuse these people of taking hundreds of thousands of dollars to maintain the cover-up. To the panel, do you guys think, first off, because maybe this is true, right? Maybe we're all being soft and that actually is true. Do you guys believe, one, that is true? And two, do you believe that Danny Sheehan actually believes that is true? Or where is this information coming from? Because I'll just say my thing first. Jay Stratton to me is like a UFO believer, true believer as they come, right? Same with Travis Taylor, almost to like a fault, right? Like Greenstreet will call them like spooky, loopy. He'll do his whole little like what do I say, Dr. Seuss adjective thing with them. So this idea that like they're taking hundreds of thousands of dollars all of a sudden to like basically be like, I'm pro cover up again, it just doesn't really jive with what I see. What do you guys think about that?
It adds more confusion to the whole picture, right? It does. It makes me more confused. Like, who are they playing? Who are these guys playing? Like both Stratton and Elizondo. Like, you know, it makes me question things even more. Yeah. Why is it so convoluted?
No, agreed, dude. I mean, the first time I heard this, I just, brain just continues to knot up. I don't know. Everything just seems like it's all meant to confuse, dude. It's hard to really say. I agree with you though, Red. I think Stratton is UFO all the way. It seems like that, right? I still think Lou's a big believer in the topic man himself, to be honest with you.
I
But
think
yeah, as
I
far
think
as
they
this,
both are too, but it's like, why is his lawyer saying this though? Because it's a huge accusation to make, and someone of Danny Sheehan's esteem, people want to say we're just catfighting, nitpicking. Like, that's a big claim from Danny Sheehan to make, dude. That's like, is do you, let's just run with his world. Like, Jay Stratton is taking, like, is this all a hit piece on Lue? Is that what they're setting up for? I think that's what they're setting up for here, right? They're basically trying to say anything that comes out of his mouth, don't believe it. That's my read on the situation. That this is coming from Lue. I think Danny Sheehan, my read is he's being manipulated by Lue to basically try and do a pre-discrediting campaign against Stratton, because I'm sure he had heard through the grapevine that, like, dude, they're kind of all getting sick of your shit. Do you guys read me on that?
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
How long ago was this clip? Do you remember? I can't
This
remember.
was like December when he started saying this. So we had the Grush hearing last July. They put out a joint statement. Shortly after that, I think the actual conference that McGowan saw him at was in like August. And then September is when he actually went on a podcast and spoke about what had happened. And then about December, November, December is when Danny Sheehan, he actually went on a few podcasts and even doubled down on this. I don't have them queued up here, but again, this is like some guy who's involved with Iran-Contra accusing, and who's now Lue Elizondo's lawyer. Like, to me, like I said, it just screams like a pre-discrediting campaign to get ahead of anything that Jay Stratton might be saying coming forward. You know what I mean? Now, anything he says can be like, oh, he's just on the cover-up payroll now. That's why he's saying that about Lue. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, no, I agree. But around that time too would have been when Lue was starting to probably really get into the book too, and some of the information probably started to circulate around, right, what he was writing.
Yeah, and that's actually a great segue into kind of our last pre-book kind of like,
I mean, Lue Elizondo
showing that like something was sketched. This is Stephen Greenstreet before the book came out. This is now probably March of this year. Tupa, do you remember? This is actually maybe April, May. This is a while back, and we covered it on Skyfire. But this is what he was saying, and this was another data point where it's like, oh, something's happening behind the scenes between Stratton and Lue. Let's see.
Elizondo's got his book coming out, and do you guys want an exclusive?
Yeah.
Yes.
Delayed, right?
Well, let me phrase it this way. From what I have, the information that was given to me from right from a horse's mouth, one of the horses in the race, I should say, is that one of the reasons Lue Elizondo's book has been delayed is because people within the circle on the inside in this group, you go pull up the group in my video, a group of people within that are going, wait, you can't say that, Lue. Like, that didn't happen. That was me. That wasn't you. That was me that did that. You got to change that. Like, you can't just say that. And so there's this inner fracturing of the group where they're starting to call each other out. There was this like the ends justify the means thing at first back in 2017, 2018, where it was like everyone was on the same team and whatever we have to say, the ends justify the means. And since then, there has been like these little micro fractures within the group. And yeah, some people are fed up within that group. Some people are just fed up and they're just like, they're kind of over it. But yeah, so there's all that stuff coming on. I'm looking forward to reading his book, to be honest with you, because it's all the stuff that he doesn't or hasn't talked about that I'm interested about reading about, I hope he goes into the Guantanamo stuff and, like how he saved American soldiers' lives with his psychic powers. Like, I really hope there's a whole chapter on that. Like, Lue Elizondo using his X-Men Magneto powers to like save American troops. Like, I want to read a whole book about that. So anyway, I'm looking forward to the book.
LOL, I'm looking forward to the book. But yeah, do you remember this too? But what did you think? I think you were in the space too, right there. What did you think when he said this? I was kind of like, oh, this is I don't think he just makes stuff up, and I think he does have a direct line with a lot of these people. And it's ironic, like him being one of the people speaking out against all this stuff. Like he's probably like one of these media people that they trust on this other beat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I specifically remember the Lue. You can't say that, Lue. I remember that, and I was like, "Oh my god!" But it sounds too incredible because, again, it's like repetition. Like his name's been repeated so much with that status next to it, and without being questioned. That when a statement like that comes out, you're like, "Holy!" Like, there's no way that we got this far along and this hasn't come up yet. There's no way people kept a lid on this for this long. But it's looking like it might have happened.
Yeah. All right. So then now we're at the book release, and I do kind of have a little mixed up, but we got Greenstreet again, a lot of Greenstreet heavy episode. Here's his read on the situation from talking to people like in that camp.
But there is a rift, I think, behind the scenes, because I'll just say this is my educated. What I mean by educated, meaning I have done the interviews, I've looked at the documentation, I've read the on-record statements, put it together. Here's my educated
And
guess.
this is a rift between the Stratton and Lue camp.
Between those camps, and it starts with, go read the chapter in Lue's book where Jay and Lue devised this war plan. And to be honest, this wasn't the first time I heard that. I knew about this, quote, war plan before Lue put it in his book. They got together. This is before he resigns, obviously, and says, look, Lue, you go out there and be the public face of this thing. Go out there and make noise, stir shit up and cause some noise and get the press to write about it. I will then, meaning I, Stratton, will take that press coverage. I will take the New York Times and I will go to Congress and say, look, right here, cover of New York Times, bam, we need to do something. You go be the public face. I'll get policy done behind the scenes. What happened, and this is my educated guess, is that Lue lost the plot. Lue, eventually, the limelight got to him and started just doing his own thing. And the unsung hero of this was Jay Stratton, who remained in the shadows, in anonymity, doing the hard work, doing the, pounding the pavement, making the phone calls, trying to get policy done behind the scenes. And at some point, they were like, it appears to be, Stratton was like, dude, what are you doing? Like, we had a plan here. Like, why are you going off and doing your own thing now? And that what we were supposed to be working towards a common goal, essentially. And they're basically like, okay, that didn't work out. And so, yeah, there is a rift kind of going on there.
What was it that Lue was doing that was designated as going rogue or going off script? Like what was the thing?
Trying to be a TV star, probably.
I don't know. I can only speak to what I've seen and heard, and kind of with my own eyes and ears. And it just seems like, so basically what the contention is Lue's main claims are actually what Stratton did. So Stratton was the guy that kind of had the reins with Lacatski, after Lacatski, with ATIP and pushing this ATIP idea in the Pentagon. And Lue was utilized because Lue was really good at connections, making connections across the IC, making connections to different offices, connections that potentially Stratton didn't have. And Lue was kind of utilized for that. And Lue was also utilized. He was really good at money, at finding funding and moving money around. And, finding that support. Lue was really, this is according to multiple sources, but Lue was really good at that. And so while Stratton was at the head of this thing, or spearheading this thing,
this is Greenstreet,
we can call ATIP, Lue was tapped occasionally, not day to day. This is not some everyday thing. Lue wasn't showing up every day to ATIP office. It wasn't like ATIP office. There was no ATIP office. Lue didn't show up every day. Lue had his own job. Stratton had his own thing, and Stratton was kind of directing things and trying to pick up the pieces that were OSEP, things that weren't official at this point. And he would tap Lue to like help out and make phone calls and try to find funding and get his input on things. But Lue saying that he was like the senior leader or the director of or was in charge of or ran this. I think initially perhaps Stratton was like, oh, well, the ends justify the means, and it's okay for him to appropriate my story because it's helping push the movement forward. And that's the goal here. We're united, and that's the goal. And I think eventually that kind of like got out of control, and he was like, okay, well, that's actually my story. It's great, but like we need to dial it back, I think, a little bit. And it's obvious. I mean, if you read all the on-record statements from 2017 till today, it starts with Lue saying, I was the director of an official Pentagon program called ATIP for nearly a decade. And if you look at his book now, he's like, I helped a group of guys out, doing some research for a thing, that we called amongst like the five of us ATIP. It's like it really has been watered down bigly after all these years. And I think some of that was because of, I think Stratton was basically like, look, you're writing his book, like, but now's the time to just tell like how it was. And you can't say you were the director of a Pentagon UFO program.
Yeah, so this happened. Tup, are you there, bro?
Oh yeah, big time.
How do we remove this this thing right here, the statement from September 2023?
Honestly, that way.
There you go. Boom.
Didn't even know it was up there. I tried removing it like in the background too. I was like, okay, that's taken care of. Dude, the host of this space is a handsome looking guy.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
I don't know. This was kind of a good breakdown, kind of a like Greenstreet's understanding of this situation, and as he said, it's kind of like an informed opinion from people in that camp, But yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think of that?
Dude, it's huge. It's huge. It's more like just reaffirming what we know, right? Number one, that ATIP was this kind of club, right? They named it themselves, and that what these guys' roles were. Lue was a go-between guy, knew how to make connections, was good at public speaking, obviously really good at kind of elbowing himself up into the leadership of certain groups, and then inflating his role with whoever he's talking to, whenever he's talking to them. Just kind of being able to make things up on the fly because he's personable. A lot of people leave talking with him and are like, oh yeah, he's a good guy. That's a good guy. A lot of people say that. But if he's a different guy to everyone, that's one of like the reasons why you want to get this guy at a round table, right? With Stratton and Putoff, right? Lacatski, Greenstreet.
Yeah, totally agree. That should totally happen for sure. For sure.
yeah, we wish. No, I think Greenstreet is probably very, very close to the mark, man. It's very, very close, dude. It seems to make sense. I mean, especially with the movement of the money. I know that even Lue talks about that in his book, where he was at the director of national programs, and how he kind of said, if I was smart enough, I could, without funding, use the funding from that program to study stuff for UAP videos and stuff like that at the exact same time. So that stuff all makes sense. I think he's pretty close.
Yeah. So let's continue along because, dude, this is this is a dance, and it's almost kind of like a bureaucratic episode, right? It's kind of like, it's not about reptilians. This is like boomer bureaucracy squabbling, recovering here.
Boomer bureaucracy, sick though. It is. They're all about the paper here. That's the missing piece.
And now we're post book launch. This is after the book, so we're still within like the last. This is all within the last month now that we're about to cover.
So you want to get more confused?
Now you want to get more confused. So after the book rollout, and Lue is going on every podcast saying like Jay Stratton's a great guy, Eric Davis is a great guy, James Lacatski's a great guy. We get Eric Davis, the madman himself, the dinosaur portal man himself. He says, Lue didn't run ATIP, which is what Jay Stratton is going to say in his book. And he also writes, and no, my Facebook profile, timeline, and feed have not been hacked. What do you guys think of that?
Damn. The hacked statement has got me rolling, dude. Boomer bureaucracy. Yeah, Eric Davis cannot tell a lie. It looks like Gary Nolan's main guy, his science supreme, is going against the narrative. What's going to happen? This is really big. I don't know if you guys know this out there in the YouTube land, but Eric Davis is held at very high esteem by both Elizondo and Gary Nolan. And Gary Nolan went so far as to say that Eric Davis cannot tell a lie. He's that believable. He's just that guy. So there's that, right? And we know that Elizondo and Nolan are involved in a so-called nonprofit, UAP Disclosure Fund. And, now we're going to have this issue because, we got Gary Nolan co-signing for Eric Davis, but Eric Davis is leaving Elizondo out to fucking dry. And that's wild. That's wild right now. Big statements by big guys.
Right.
This is
Clash
of
the
Titans
week
right
of
here.
the book rollout. Like, dude, what do you think Lou thought when he read this, bro?
He was
I'm
probably
sorry.
like, wow, the guy who's got connections all the way back to NIDS from like the start of this thing is now going against me.
He was like, oh shoot, dude. I feel like that one meme of and let's try and find it. That one meme of Ben Affleck, dude. I feel like that's just been Lou like every day since the book came out. I feel bad for this guy.
Stressed out Affleck for sure.
All right, can you see that? Is it showing up or no? It didn't show up. Oh, there you
Yes,
go.
yes.
Yo, I think this came out like a couple days before the book too. Wasn't this on like the 17th?
I don't remember the exact. I think it was right around everything happening.
I think it was right before it.
So then I do remember this happened. This next one was for sure like after the book. Here's then James Lacatski, the old OSAP head. He says this. I was the sole program manager for the complete duration of the DA's OSAP, September 2008 to December 2010, and worked alongside DHS in the follow-on Kona Blue program through 2011. Lue Elizondo was not involved in either OSAP or Kona Blue. So yeah, we have James Lacatski basically coming out and saying like, yo, what the hell? There's something interesting that kind of gets overlooked here. He's kind of acting like Kona Blue was a thing, right? And I guess for the audience that might not know, Kona Blue was, as we understand it, a proposed like special access program that was supposed to kind of take place after OSAP and ATIP, and it was supposed to kind of be like OSAP on steroids, where OSAP was investigating Skinwalker Ranch and like some of the spookier elements. This is going to have like 10 Skinwalker ranches, like some of them already identified across the country, and also a bunch of like remote viewers and whatnot. But yeah, dude, so we got Lou's book comes out. We have right off the bat Eric Davis and then James Lacatski kind of throwing these like. And I tweeted out something. Tuba found it funny. I found it funny too. It was like all these boomers are having to like awkwardly dance around like a dude kind of just being a liar. And it's very crazy. And who also kind of has more like machismo than them. Is just kind of willing to be like, yeah, I'm just going to go on TV and lie. Like, what are you going to do about it? You know what I mean? Like, and they're just kind of like having to awkwardly be like, this book's coming out and it's not looking good. What do we got next here?
Well, I was
Then we
gonna
had
say
yeah.
one other thing on that, dude, really quick, is that this is the Kona Blue thing is a good pick by you here, because this is what throws a wrench into this side of the machine, because like I've always kind of been more in line with what James Lacatski was saying about the timeline and who was working where and who was director. And then he says that Kona Blue was stood up when it wasn't. So now I'm like, shit, now you're off base. Everyone's off base. Who can I look at, dude? This is crazy.
Yeah, like what the hell? Like, there's a whole Kona Blue thing that needs to be done about all this. But yeah, let's go to the next one. We had more Eric Davis heat. He was just wilding on Facebook, dude. Like I said, the state of ufology. We're just watching these boomer Twitter fingers just go back and forth. But Lou never worked for the ATIP, nickname OSAP, actual name. He was also not in a support role to the DAA program manager, Jim Lacatski. Jay Stratton did provide support to Lacatski, while Lou provided some direct support to the UAPTF when Jay was its director. And then Nick Mills says, Eric Davis, so is he lying or just embellishing? And Eric Davis says, embellishing, in reference to Lou. So it's like, these guys can't just say like, what does embellishing mean? Isn't embellishing like just lying? Like, if you embellish, if you say you did something that you didn't do, isn't that just like lying? Like,
Dude,
embellishing is like so
tell
kid
me
gloves.
tell me you have UFO Jesus's post disclosure world post. Tell me
his
you,
cope? I do have that. Yeah.
because that is like maximum cope, right? And it's just embellishing. Now before, dude, the guy couldn't do any wrong. And now within like a couple weeks, everyone's like, okay, so maybe, so what if he embellished on his, it's like, you've never said on your resume, like a little lie? Like, dude, going from a random contractor popped in to make some things and then make some connections, to like being the spokesperson, to while you have the mic and can't be censored and there's no one else there to argue with you, you just start saying that you're the director and all this other extra stuff seems very weird. But shame on everyone in the group who knew the entire time and said nothing. Like, Corbell knew. George Knapp seemed to have known. Bigelow knew. Eric Davis knew. Jay Stratton knew. And then we're supposed to believe that they're not watching the chatter online. We're supposed to believe that every time Matt Ford tried to smear Greenstreet and Greenwald and everyone else who was questioning this, like that he was doing so from like as an honest dude. He wasn't trying to. He didn't know. I bet you everyone knew. I mean, think about it. We're talking about open secret within this group that this guy didn't do these things. He's embellishing, and then an open hatred towards the people questioning it. Open attacks.
Look at the guy on the left of that photo, Tupa. What's Hal Putoff say, right?
I refuse to acknowledge him because I don't want to. I don't want to disappear.
I'm just saying, why don't we hear Hal, right? I want to hear Hal.
I don't want to disappear, bro. Like, he's cool. But exactly. I bet he knew. Everyone knew, dude, that that Elizondo was out here gallivanting around as something he wasn't, and that it could put a serious risk into their disclosure efforts. And it is. It's a big risk, dude. And that they didn't say anything. They just thought that we're too far down the road right now, right? And then doesn't that mean that Elizondo's basically holding them hostage, saying you have to agree, you have to agree with this lie, and if you come out, then it's going to just damage disclosure? And isn't damaging disclosure or hurting disclosure or you're not helping disclosure a common phrase that this guy's supporters always use to silence these questions?
Oh, we're seeing it right now live in the chat.
Really?
Like, what does this have to do with anything? Why does this matter? You just hate Lue and disclosure.
Yeah, I definitely don't hate.
We added the goatee to the Ben Affleck meme, by the way, guys.
There we go. This is progress.
This is Lue. Literally, I feel like every day of the book rollout, it's like, damn, bro. Eric Davis talking shit. James Lacatski talking shit.
Just imagine a guy with a clipboard and headphones walks up to this guy. Mr. Elizondo, you ready for the Daily Show now? You're on in 5. It's like, God.
Tupa, do you think it could be though that they were a little bit surprised at the progress that they were getting and they were like afraid to touch it at all, even kind of get in the way and screw any of it up that they felt? What do you think about that?
100%. I don't think they expected him to go so crazy with it. I think he had these character traits, but when we heard the whistleblower LM, like he surrounded himself with people where it's like, don't question anything he said. Like it's literally, you guys, textbook cult dynamics. And I don't think he was prepared for one. And we talk about this at the Julian Dory. These counter intel dudes, like they live their whole life in like secrecy. You know what I mean? Like not trying to be fucking famous. And like Lue seems to like have that, but also the need to want to be famous. And those are kind of like meeting in a weird spot to where he's like going full counter intel dude on every little hater comment and like doing all this crazy stuff. You know what I mean? So I don't think they expected him to get so crazy and even more emboldened with the lies, but he's just been surrounding himself like, what I was making the point earlier with the LM thing. Like some of these podcast hosts, it's like, you can't question anything he says, even if he's wrong, you won't tell him that. Like this is literally what people have said, like they were told before talking to Lue. So I think it just kind of got out of hand. But yeah, Tuba, what are your thoughts?
I think when, again, I like to look at the totality of it as we go on. I'm able to change my mind, you know? And this idea of him just kind of talking too fast, too easily lying, right? Just embellishing too easily and getting himself painted into a corner, in my opinion, kind of fades away in likelihood. And I think what's looking more and more likely is that he knew what he was doing the whole time and was making these moves because he knew that these guys would never say anything. And he knew that, okay, let me just highlight some things real quick, right? That I think are kind of elephant in the room and might come across as maybe crass or rude. But Elizondo's surrounded by a bunch of little nerds, right? Look at Eric Davis. Look at Lacatski. Look at these guys. Like, he could have, he clearly, I don't know. I just think that he was bullying them. I think that like by him going out there and saying, I'm doing this shit and I'm the director, like he just thought, fuck it. Like, he was bullying them, like calling their bluff. Like, you're not going to say anything. You're not going to come out and say anything. You're not going to muddy the waters. You know what I mean? And then when people started to look into it, he needed to protect himself social media wise, right? Because by that time he was hyper aware. I think there's a combination, maybe, in my opinion, between sensitivity, like he's just sensitive, right? He's a kind of a little guy and he's just a little sensitive, and he's always on the defense. Right, on the offense maybe because he's tired of being the defense, something like that. He just seems like he's mentioned bullies before. I've been fighting bullies my whole life. Like, I would never say that. You know what I mean? I haven't been, but I mean at the same time, you deal with assholes. That's his position on life. He's like revealing a little bit more about how he views the world, right? And I think he bullied these guys, and I think that when he was up there lying, he called their bluff. They wouldn't say nothing, and he got as far as the book, but. These lies that are coming out are like pretty big, dude. Like, they're so big that it shows either he's a pathological liar, he can't help himself, or he never respected these dudes and he thought he could get away with saying whatever the hell he wanted to. And they would. Do you also
think it's possible that they maybe feel that they don't really need Lue as much as they did prior? I mean, when you look at what's alleged that Stratton's wife said, that the disclosure died when the Schumer amendment didn't go through, right? Maybe they feel like that the timing on it is kind of like, what, we don't really have to deal with this anymore. Let's just go ahead and Stratton, you put out your book, and we're just going to move away from Lue. Does that make sense?
I mean, a little bit, yeah, it does. But there's all this also like other things becoming more clear now too, like. Why was he so defensive? Like, you know what I mean? Like, so damn defensive about a lot of this stuff coming out. It just strikes me as someone who knew that from the beginning that these things weren't true. Something's off, man. There's like a dynamic
time
here.
Time is the answer, right? Time's the answer. We're gonna have to just wait and see how all this folds out, as the year goes on.
Yeah, but how does it look? You know what I mean? Like, what does it look like now? You got a guy like right? You got to like look at the company he's keeping. I'm not just referring to this photograph of these guys, but these are like scientists. These are not intelligence agents. These are scientists who are super curious about the unknown. They contract this dude. He comes in. And now they're all like, he's just out there like taking our story. He's eating our fucking lunch. Like, it's not great.
And like, to your point, right? Listen to what, and I said this to all these like awkward, like kind of nerdy, kind of boomery science guys, they weren't training to invade Cuba when they were a kid, like getting in fights and whatnot, listen to what
I have seen.
This is Lacatski. This is actually a little bit, we're kind of jumping around a little bit. This is a little throwback. But I think he's talking about Lue here, and I'm curious what you guys think. Let's see.
In multiple cases, what I would can only call forged documents. So,
okay, so there's another thing
Why
we should
is
talk
Corbell
about. So
smiling about this?
What do you mean by that? There have been forged documents.
They're documents talking about programs that are not legitimate documents.
Within intelligence servers, within your industry, there are forged documents inside of our government's, or what are you talking about? Just on the internet?
I'm
are you talking
about both?
Really? How could that happen? Forged documents with inside our intelligence agency server.
They even covered this on an X-Files episode. Every special access program has a counterintelligence officer. That's their job. It's their job. So, you might say, well, wait a minute, Jim and Colin are counterintelligence officers. No, we're not. There's no reason to be. But if you're in a program, you have that person either assigned to you or you bring them in, and there's a source of forged documents right there. Go have your listeners and readers go back through the UFO history, and you'll see fingers pointing to others that, again, I won't name them, that, hey, this is all fabricated.
I think that might be talking about something that we're going to cover a little bit later, which is this Harry Reid letter. But yeah, I think he's definitely talking about Lue there. Let's play. There's another Lue clip I wanted to run through. I should have maybe moved that around a bit, but I think this next one's definitely about Lue, especially with the context of everything.
I've observed to Colin something that is, I'm looking at it particularly in regard to UFOs and the paranormal. There are people who have written, have talked about things they are absolutely wrong about, but they totally believe it. You can't call them liars. They totally believe it. Now, how many of those people that David Grush came across are fit in that category? I could name a list of them right now, but I won't. Obviously, I respect their opinions, but I know what they're saying is false. So it's a phenomenon now. I certainly hope that does not spread across all topics on the internet, because we're in big trouble if that's the case, because that means people are, is delusional the correct word? I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I don't know what it is.
So with the context of everything, he has to be talking about Lue there, right? Or do you guys have any other guesses, or what are your thoughts on this?
I don't know. This was always a weird one for me, dude. But the context, like now, yeah. With what we've learned about now, that's potentially what's going on. Yeah, it starts to kind of line up, but that's a possibility. Yeah,
it definitely tracks, right?
Sounds like Lue to me.
We're gonna hear more, and just kind of keep that in mind. I might even have to replay some of those clips, but it just tracks with Lue. And again, dude, you guys, I was a Lue shill. I still think Lue's done a lot of great stuff, and I don't want to be having this conversation, but it's being had, and it needs to be had, and people are kind of. I know a lot of people are in cult mode and confused and thought everything was fine and dandy, and are just have no idea that these statements have been made. So that hopefully this is a one-stop shop for just kind of getting to the bottom of this riff. But counterintel boomer dudes going to war against each other. We're gonna dissect it here. Let's go next. So this was the next This was the next big thing, and we're gonna have to get some fucking dramatic music for this or something. This was the Munook statement. So this is Munook, and I added the goatee Lue to all of the posts now. So we'll see goatee Lue everything. But this is a Lue crew guy. This is actually, I would even call him a tangential little hate grouper. He was out here running with KMF, kind of propping him up, making him seem like not a bad guy, making it seem like KMF's victims are actually kind of maybe deserved it. But he tweets this out, and I guess we're just gonna hear it. Oh yeah, I wanted to find some good music, suspense music. Boom. And this was the next kind of big thing, because we'll just listen to it, and while you're listening to it, I have it there too. Stephen Greenstreet says he has receipts to back up all of these claims. So let's listen to it. We've been hearing this from a few other places. This was explosive.
Others that heard it have since wandered away from Disclesauer and taken up independent.
I fucked up the first part of this, but he's basically talking about
Disclesauer.
a conversation with Stratton and his wife about this whole thing. So let's just play it. Yeah.
I might delete this. Others that heard it have since wandered away from Disclesauer and taken up independent efforts. I'll say that much. Elizondo isn't in the info community to apply counterintelligence techniques to social media addicts. That's definitely a stoner delusion. He was hired by Stratton to apply his counterintel skills to the UFO topic, to try to determine if the object...
Just had to pause real quick, because he totally took a little dig at us right there.
Shout out Munook.
The whole that's a stoner delusion thing. Yeah, shouts out Munook. Let's move this so we can see our
Taking another bong rip.
Yeah, right. Let's
to social media addicts. That's definitely a stoner delusion.
just kind of throw out the fact that all these guys are kind of doing this right now. They're honoring us. The fact that Munook, you feel the need to like throw out this little throwaway line that me and Tupa have been on this beat, is you're subconsciously like admitting that like, oh, these guys are right. Like you wouldn't feel the need to do it, right? Like do you get what I'm saying, Tupa? Is that cope? I don't know.
Oh, no, we're just eternally. We're always going to be tied to this. You know what I mean? It's because we were early adopters in something, and we had loud voices. We didn't stop talking about it. And so, what's going to happen is, and just like this happens in science and any other kind of field where new ideas are scoffed at, when they start to get adopted for real into the mainstream because they prove true, a lot of the people who were scoffing are going to be like, oh, the guys who first brought this up is great. That's not what we're talking about. That's a different thing. They're trying to like come to the same conclusion through their own way because they just, it's like a combination of denial and understanding, or lack thereof. So
we're seeing a lot of very interesting cope and denial. But yeah, let's continue along here.
He was hired by Stratton to apply his counter-intel skills to the UFO topic, to try to determine if the objects observed were foreign adversaries. Not whatever stupid conspiracy micro-celeb egomaniacs have concocted. That said, what she said, and Jay confirmed, wasn't flattering. She said that the famous AATIP document was erroneously signed by Sen Harry Reid. That Lue got him to write off on it while Harry had chemo brain and was heavily medicated. So AATIP was an unofficial boys' club that Reid signed off on while not in his right mind. She said he did it to take control of the narrative, create a job for himself, and be in the spotlight. He has knowledge and was in AWSAP, but is undermining Stratton's role, exaggerating his own role, and presenting info like his sole job wasn't to determine if it was China, Russia. An unnamed billionaire caught wind of Elizondo getting Reid to sign off on the program while Harry didn't have his wits about him and told Elizondo that if he didn't admit to it and correct it, Lue's grandchildren wouldn't be able to afford shoes. While I haven't read the book, apparently Lue was going to present some cases that occurred to the Strattons at their home, as if they happened to himself. Jay caught wind of that and said that if Lue went ahead, that he would alter the book he is writing to expose Elizondo. She said, Lue is a fraud. She also went on to say that disclosure ended with the snuffing out of the Schumer amendment. But Lue is acting like there is still hope, so he can stay in the spotlight and sell some books. She also said that the true reality of some of it is scary, and no one is chomping at the bits to talk about shadow beings that can waltz into your home in the night. She also said that David Grush is golden, and we all owe home a lot. Dude was getting "we'll find you" threats. He might be the closest thing we get to disclosure.
I love the way it ends, like, we might be the closest thing we get to disclosure, but there's actually a lot of interesting data points in there. And again, Stephen Greenstreet says, a reputable journalist, right? You might not like him for being a debunker, but he is a journalist at a very major publication. Says that I have receipts for all these claims. So some of the things that stick out to me are the whole claim about the appropriating the orb sighting, right? And then the claim about the Harry Reid letter. What did you guys think of this? And we're really breathed a lot of life into it with Stephen Greenstreet kind of saying that he's able to back up all these claims. And we kind of have heard a lot of this stuff from other people too. So yeah, what are your thoughts here?
This is really the collapse of it all, I think, where even at a civilian level, people are starting to notice this. This is really bad. Like, of all the kinds of leaks that Elizondo, or little fires that he was probably trying to put out, the ones that you've kind of presented here clearly, like all these different statements and events, he tried his best, and so did his supporters, tried their best to snuff it out, to make it a nothing. And this, it was so inflammatory. This thread was so much, it almost sounded like too crazy to be true. But then you get, there's state people started backing it up. I don't think David was exaggerating here, and Greenstreet wouldn't come in and risk his reputation. He reminds me of a guy who knows when to hold his cards and when to play them.
And a lawsuit, right? He knows,
Yeah.
he's not just going to throw out the Harry Reid letter was written under kind of weird circumstances if he's opening himself up to be sued. And if that's, if someone is making that up, they should be sued, right? But I just don't see him doing that.
Me either. I don't either. This was a crazy moment. Go ahead.
No, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just dude, this was like the biggest moment of late, right? Like there's been claims and kind of what we went over before, about whether he was the director and the dates and stuff like that, but this is really big, right? If that letter comes out to be funky at all, dude, that's huge. That's huge. He's down there hanging out with Burchett. He's down there hanging out with people in Congress. These guys are involved in writing legislation. It's a big deal, dude. And then obviously, if the so-called billionaire is, allegedly Robert Bigelow, what a gangster Bigelow is, right?
Dude, right? Totally. And shouts out Alien Girl in the chat. Everyone go subscribe to her. We're definitely going to get her on too. We're going to try and uplift all the really good movers and shakers in this community with these live streams. But yeah, dude, this is a lot of stuff going on here. Let's look up some supplemental content on these kind of some of these beats raised. Here's Greenstreet on the letter.
I will say this because I have it in black and white in front of me, so I have it, but I haven't reported on it yet. But I have it in black and white, so it's like it's something I can touch. I'm not just guessing, but I do know that those what's a good way of saying this? Like those close to this, those directly involved in this in ATIP OSAP. I will say a major player in that claims that Reid didn't write that Harry Reid letter, that Harry Reid didn't actually write that letter, that Lue Elizondo actually wrote that letter and Reid just signed it. So that's not my claim. That's a claim from a major player in the ATIP OSAP
I've always
arena.
got that vibe that there was something fishy about that letter. Like it was like that one meme where like the person's taking the dead corpse to the ATM, low key. I've always got that vibe.
Stephen Jay Stratton is claiming
well,
that?
I haven't reported on anything yet, but I will say that like someone like in that ATIP OSAP arena claims that.
What's interesting about this whole thing is like one of the things that Greenstreet kind of got blackpilled on this whole dynamic, and you kind of heard in the beginning, he's kind of like a Stratton fanboy, even though he's kind of a debunker. When he was kind of digging around, there's all these pieces of documentation for Stratton and Lacatski being all involved in OSAP, like borrowing expense reports and just kind of stuff like that, like day to day, a lot of documentation. Not the case for Lue Elizondo, and like the only thing Lue Elizondo really ever has on that front is this letter, and that's kind of why I was always a little sussed of it, because it was like this is the only thing kind of being shown. All the Lue crew has it like tattooed to them. And, there is that clip of Harry Reid kind of saying all this stuff, but when he's a private citizen at that point, like it's not outside the realm of possibilities. And also, like I know for colleges, a lot of people will write their own letters and just have someone kind of sign off on it. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that whole thing about like this is like kind of the main piece of documentation proving his claims? And you would think, and also real quick too, what we're going to follow later is him being like, I have proof of all my claims that I've chosen to not release yet, which we'll cover later. Like with the context of this letter, like him wanting to put this it's just weird. But yeah, sorry, Terrestrial, go for it, bro.
No, you're good, dude. I just was gonna say, yeah, I mean, this is the big one, right? I mean, but there are the emails that came out, I think through FOIA, right, with him essentially trying to move the whatever they were doing, ATIP at the time, program over towards Neil Tipton, right? So you kind of have those, but that's and Tipton doesn't really respond in like a weird way.
And I don't have
emails.
those up, but even to that, like Greenstreet says, and other people say, like it's almost like Lue kind of like preemptively like, let me have something foiable that said I was here.
Right.
And I'm just going to type an email saying like, hey, this is me. This is what I've been doing. Now it's yours. And the guy who received the email was kind of like, what the hell is it? Like, what's going on? Like, and that's also one of the two pieces of documentation that's like, no, look at Lue actually is who he says he is. Here's this Harry Reid signed letter. And here's this email that he sent to some other guy who was confused by it about like what he did. Like he emailed someone else saying that he worked here. So it's true. It's very strange. Very strange.
This is the big one though, right? This is the big one.
Yeah, this is the big one, dude. Well, if Lue did what Stratton claimed, right, which was that he was like an in-between guy, he was like able to make connections with people. Him getting in the position, you know, it sounds like this tactic, not only that one email, but this letter, as presented by, you know, what sounds like Stratton. It makes sense. It makes sense. You know, like he's like a master of public appearance. Right, like the idea of like how to strategically work things in to make sure that there's some paperwork, there's some paper trail, and then if that's the case, okay, you might suspect that, but where's the proof? It's right there. These are the only two pieces of documentation he's ever shown that you know seem to validate his claim. So the motive is there, the capability is there, and then like the use for it is all there. It looks like he could do something like this. It sounds like he did do something like this. And it sounds like he tried to use it for the exact reason someone who would do this would use it for. So that just leaves it in a really, really weird spot.
Who do you guys think is Greenstreet's source on this?
Stratton.
Stratton? Right?
Yeah, Stratton. The way he answered that question of like, I haven't reported it. You know what I mean? You can tell in their voice with some people, man. And it sounded like he was kind of hitting the mark, right?
Yeah, for sure. Tuba, sorry, man. Was there something else you were wrapping up there? My bad.
No, I can't. I just can't wait till we get to the recent slides, dude.
Yeah. Something else too that came up that like I didn't really clip, but Greenstreet basically said that like he basically has corroborating evidence that Lue when he interviewed,
it could have been much more frequent, but
when he interviewed Lue the first time, he said he never saw the phenomena. And that he has basically like a sworn statement from one of these people too, saying that like Lue basically stole Stratton's orb experiences. So just a little trip down memory lane, and that way we can include our boy Julian Dory. We're just gonna
before you play this clip, Red, I want to add one more little piece of background here. John Robert, the guy that he drove back and forth to DOD with, also supposedly had orb experiences at his house. So I wonder, you know, if there was a little bit of influence from that too.
Yeah. So first we got the clip on the left, which is the Theories of Everything one, where he says he didn't even think to record the orbs in his home. And again, Randy, the reason we're covering this is because in that Munook statement, which Greenstreet said he corroborated and which I didn't clip, he also said kind of on the record that like one of the other big things that kind of I think pissed a lot of people off was the appropriating of these orb experiences as his own. And, you know, I hate to be accusing people of this, but when you look at Lue's answers, it's a little sus. Let's look at the one we've already seen on this channel, the one on the left first.
Or like I'm looking at this monitor right now. It's bright, but it doesn't hurt my eyes. It's like a passive illumination. It wasn't like it was glowing. It wasn't like an active spotlight in your eyes. It was just a diffuse green ball. And as you got closer to it, it seemed to get thicker and thicker in the middle.
Were you able to see the interior of it?
There was no interior that I could see. It literally looked like a neon light where it was more brilliant in the center and it just became more diffuse. I could not, there was no hard edges. There did not seem to be any technology behind it. There wasn't a device, if you will, inside. It was like, you know what, probably best way, like a plasma ball, but not as intense, not as violent, if that makes sense.
You want to cut in there real quick? What are you thinking?
This is reminding me of when the 40-year-old virgin, he tries to describe boobs. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, like a bag of sand.
It is like somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about trying to describe and act like they do, right? Like,
yes,
yeah.
It's so bad. It's so bad.
Lord have mercy. All right, let's continue this.
Did you ever set up cameras?
So no, we didn't have cameras inside the house. We had cell phones, but back in 2010, I was using a BlackBerry, a government issued BlackBerry, where we did not have cameras. The cameras were disabled. So I did never, and also we couldn't predict the frequency. It wasn't like I had a camera next to me all the time. It's like when you're sitting down and watching a TV show with a family, all of a sudden, whoop, there it goes.
I just mean home set up cameras in the corner, monitoring a room or the outside.
No, we did not. We didn't even have cameras externally. We had an alarm system, but we did not have cameras set up in the house.
So many people may say, look, if there's a suspected burglar that taps on my window, perhaps I'm paranoid, but I would set up the next day 10 cameras all around my house, inside, outside.
I would too if it's a burglar.
Now, that may be an overreaction, but
well, let me ask you this: when there's a thunderstorm near your neighborhood, do you set up cameras to look at the lightning? No, it's interesting, but most people just look and say, "Well, that's curiosity, right?"
So dumb.
It was the same thing with us. There wasn't necessarily a desire to set up a bunch of cameras because you never knew where it was going to appear. I could put 10 cameras in the hallway. Go ahead.
It didn't occur to you to set up cameras.
It's so bad.
Yeah, dude. And this part's really important. It didn't occur to you to set up. Listen to this. He says, and this is gonna be important for the next clip. But he says, like less than a week later on Julian Dory. Listen.
A desire to set up a bunch of cameras because you never knew where it was going to appear. I could put 10 cameras in the hallway. Go ahead.
It didn't occur to you to set up cameras, and then you said no. It just never occurred to you. The thought.
No, because it wasn't alarming to us. It was curious. We were curious about it, but you didn't know where it was going to appear. Right? Sometime in the hallway, sometimes in the kitchen. I mean, I can't put 1,000 cameras around the house and hope that I'm going to, have every single one of them on all the time, hope to capture something. It wasn't that big of a deal to us. It was just
so important. He doesn't name anyone else. He says you guys didn't even. He didn't have the thought on his own. Now listen to what he said on Julian Dory, bro.
We just weren't there to see it.
Did you report this to Put Off or Davis or people on the ATIP team?
Yeah, they call it. They had a term for it. They called it high strangeness.
High strength. What do you mean?
I don't know.
Ask
them. I don't know what the hell it means. They just call it high strange. Okay, yeah, strange. You're right.
Did they come in and investigate it though? Like, did they try to set up anything?
No, they had no issue with it at all. They said it's very, very normal for that.
They said it was normal.
Yeah,
so someone on the ATIP team.
Oh yeah.
Doesn't he kind of sound like mumbly there to you? Let's just kind of. He's just kind of sounds like he's bullshitting, bro. I'm sorry, but he does. He's like, oh, well, there's no.
Yes.
High strength. What do you mean?
I don't know.
Ask
them. I don't know what the hell it means. They just call it high strange. Okay, yeah, strange. You're right.
Did they come in and investigate it though? Like, did they try to set up anything?
No, they had no issue with it at all. They said it's very, very normal for
they
that.
said
to
it was
happen.
normal.
Yeah,
so someone
a lot
on
of
the
people.
ATIP team.
Oh yeah,
counter intel guy is now seeing.
not counter intel. Oh yeah, I was counter intel.
That's what I'm saying. Is now seeing orbs in his house while you're working on this project about these UAPs.
Right.
And the team that's in charge of UAPs doesn't want to go investigate that.
No, they're saying that they're having the same issue too. They're like, well, what do you want to do about it? I don't know.
I don't know. Set up a camera, Ghostbusters,
Yeah.
get Bill Murray in there, do something. Right?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, once every few months, you'd have to have a lot of cameras. I don't have a setup like this. I can't afford anything this fancy.
Listen, I'll donate these.
We're
gonna find Man Bear Pig in there, baby. Let's get Al Gore on the line.
there are other individuals that are, I think, going to be coming out.
So shouts out Julian Dory. You're right. People wanted to say he did softball. He pressed him there, and he got some good info there. And notice in the first one, he doesn't mention Hal Pudoff or Eric Davis at all. And in the second one, he says like they told him like don't worry about it, don't film it. Like they're like he almost defers the responsibility of him not having videos like to them in a really weird way. Do you guys?
Yes, it's almost as if he didn't anticipate the follow-up questions when he entered it into his book. You know, it's very weird. Like, very weird. There's an incongruency here. But what it's looking like is he's never telling the truth about this one specific topic. And that would be really unfortunate to find out that these experiences he echoed in his book and right here in these interviews were actually other people's experiences that he was, quote unquote, exaggerating his own stories with.
Yeah, it doesn't feel. I feel like he would have thought this was a bigger deal too, right? I mean, if this were to happen to him, even if they weren't, experiencing damage or anything like that, it seems like he'd be more excited about it, right? He just seems like he wants to get through the question rather than like expanding and getting, explaining, right?
That's a great way of putting it. He wants to get through the question. I don't know. Well, you ask them. I don't know. How strangers? I don't know.
Next question.
And what Tupa said, it's a combination of wanting to get through the next question, plus the whole like trying to describe boobs without ever having like seen boobs or touched boobs, like energy. Anytime this orb stuff comes up, he has a combination of those two kind of vibes. Very strange.
High strangeness.
They called it high strangeness. No, they didn't. No, they didn't, dude.
Yeah. So let's continue along. What do we got here next?
Joe Murgia. Joe.
Oh, so now we got UFO Joe in the mix. Shouts out Cosmic Judas for this iconic clip. Joe's been in the game for a long time. Big time, long time Lue guy, Lue crew. He recently got blocked. I thought it'd be fun to just kind of look at Joe's been in the game so long. Look at him back in the day. Let's just enjoy this for a second.
Joe Murgia. Joe, welcome to the show. I don't know, after a couple of years of Disclosure 98, Disclosure 99, Disclosure 2000, I think we're closer than ever.
I know we talk about disclosure and are we going to get there? And I'm not holding my breath. I'm not crossing my fingers. I'm just going to let's see what happens this year. I don't know if it'll happen or not. If the Department of Defense comes out and says, yes, we do have information on that particular event or this particular event. One of the, I don't know if you remember, I don't know if you got to hear the audio from one of the astronauts, but it was Houston, we have a sighting of an unidentified flying object. Maybe the craft is creating, Hal Puthoff, that's another name, physicist out in California, talks about them creating sort of a gravitational field surrounding the craft.
Shout out to the first ever live streams, which were public access television. Those are amazing.
Dude, that vibe, that aesthetic, like, I'm not even joking. Like, that's a vibe, right? It's a cozy vibe. Like,
Yeah.
the music.
Between two ferns.
Yeah, the
For
backdrop.
legitimately.
So, yeah, he's been in the mix, right? And he's kind of... So this is what's important. And I think a lot of these guys... And remember what I said about Jay Stratton and Lue Elizondo, how they use the media to do things. Like, he has sources. I don't know, maybe... Tuba, are you down to read this? Kind of what this exchange between him and...
Yeah. Joe Murgia says, in the last 7 years, I've always spoken up if I saw an issue or had a question. And you know that because you mentioned it when I interviewed you. I think you said something like, I did it the right way, as opposed to the pseudos and debunkers. So this isn't a recent trend. And okay, so this seems like it's in response to something. He's speaking directly to Lue here.
Yeah, let me go find actually what the OG thing on this was real quick. But I guess just kind of read Lue's response for that, and I'll find the...
All right, Lue goes on to respond to this. With all due respect, Joe, I don't recall seeing you at the meeting, nor anyone you speak to. Not sure why this recent trend in negativity, but I wish you the best. Goes on to say, Joe, out of an abundance of respect for you and your sources, I know who they are. Creepy. I will not engage further on this topic in order to preserve their reputations and help further disclosure for everyone's benefit. However, I have unquestionable documentation to substantiate my roles and contributions I have chosen not to release as of yet. I prefer to take the high road, and so should you, for everyone's sake. Next time you have doubts, I would appreciate simply asking me the question before spreading inaccuracies about me that you think are accurate. Bottom line, you are being misled by your sources. That said, giving you credit where credit is due, I do wish you the best. You have indeed helped disclosure in the past. Okay, mafioso. Very weird statements here.
You have helped disclosure in the past. To basically marking him for the group, like you're no longer helping it. But also this weird line. I have unquestionable documentation to substantiate my roles and contributions I have chosen not yet to release. And I did put up the original thing that kind of started it all. Kind of inconsequential, but the other day, Lue Elizondo was interviewed by Patrick Bet-David, Lue killing the tour. I'm confident that this is not accurate and did not happen. And it's a quote of Lue saying, there was also a report which I heard directly from the former senator where he was accidentally read onto the program at one point to the ongoing government CFO program. And he was so incensed when they tried to read him off and say, oh, there was a mistake. We shouldn't have told you about this. He got very mad, and this was one of the many reasons he got involved. So Joe's saying that, like, this isn't accurate, right? And he's saying that his sources are, like, doubling down. So who do you guys think Joe's sources are? That's a big question in all this. What,
I think
Stratton, Eric Davis, right?
Yeah, Stratton, the Strattons, Davis. I'm thinking maybe at this point it could be George Knapp and Corbell as well.
Yeah,
true.
They're kind of strangely silent. We do got some of them coming up here, I think, too. But another big loss in this whole thing. And mind you, this is all after the Munook stuff. He's losing Michelangelo, bro. Dude. So shouts out to Joe. He's kind of getting a lot of heat. Like, I didn't like seeing this, bro. Nice to read something like this after some of the stuff directed my way yesterday. I cried all night. Like, bro, like a grown-ass man, like, I try to have empathy for these people because it is like literally leaving a cult, right? And you don't want to kind of just like shit on someone like this dude. And I think by his own account, like he was going after people for raising these questions a few years ago. And it's an emotional, like we see with Lue reviews. We see it's an emotional thing to go from like, I support this guy to like, actually, maybe he's a liar. And not only is he a liar, if I question the lies now, he has this whole hate group coming after me. You know what I mean? It's like the man himself says right there, I cried all night, a grown-ass man, about this whole thing. Like, what do you think that's about? You know what I mean?
I think it's about not really like a friendship loss or anything like that. I think it's more that people worry about the last 7 years falling apart, right? I think that's really what it's about.
It's like it's basically like I've been conned, or you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
I've been
for sure,
conned for
for sure.
7 years. You know what I mean? Like that's yeah. He highlights some of the abuse he's getting. I didn't include it. I maybe should have. It was obvious.
You know what it is?
Yeah.
It's a bunch of nerds who let these fucking trolls, for my language, who let these trolls run their whole life online. They couldn't speak out about anything. They couldn't talk about certain stuff. They were all afraid to get attacked by this like marauding group of trolls. And no one would say nothing. And it kept happening to people. It happened to Joe's friend. They just let it happen. That's my take on it, dude. And the reason why he cried all night is because they're starting to realize how they've been living underneath this thing where slowly they're like kind of like their rights were taken away. They were sacrificing information, or they were sacrificing
integrity too, right?
Yes, yeah, all for information, all for disclosure, for some cause, right? And then it was all for the Disclosure Act, right? And like it's all starting to fall apart. And now with that illusion that falls apart, it's like, okay, they now realize they don't have to live under this iron fist of this crazy hate group who could destroy their entire reputation and just make it so like they have to deal with it for a year or two like we did.
Yeah.
That's what I think is happening. That's why I think these guys are getting emotional about this and starting to feel like even post-disclosure, bro. Even him saying anything like that, like, oh, you know, so he embellished on his resume, like, dude, he couldn't say that last month.
Yeah, you definitely couldn't. 100%. Yeah.
Got some more of the people. Oh wait, actually, wait, real quick before we even do that, let's go back to finish up Michelangelo there. And Michelangelo, I was saying this in space. I don't know if you guys know this. Michelangelo was a big YouTuber at one point in time, like 6-7 years ago. I think on some like mainstream vlog shit or gamer stuff. Then he kind of stopped doing that, got really into UFOs, and he kind of pioneered the clipping on Twitter, which I was saying this last night too. A few things. Adam Goldstack, serial harasser, crazy guy in my opinion. He wrote a whole book about like how basically like the birth of UFO Twitter from that perspective. It's really fascinating. I recommend everyone buy it before he takes it down. Sean Cahill wrote the foreword of it. It writes about like Black Vault being a pariah and like how they had to handle him and how they had like a faceless bureaucrat teaching them how to be like an online militia against the secret keepers. Really scandalous stuff. But in that book, he has like a whole little subchapter about Michelangelo and the impact Michelangelo's had on disclosure, because you know a lot of UFO content is lost in like 2-3 hour long streams, podcasts, interviews, and these clips and these moments, like it actually does change things in the narrative flow. And Tupa, you could speak on this, right? With Skyfire News, I really learned it because when I first read that thing about like I like Michelangelo, he's cool, but I was like, why are they like crying and jacking up about Michelangelo? But after Skyfire, and like you really see like all the things that you could clip and what people decide to clip and not clip, and how that affects the whole like UFO media landscape. Like everyone who does a live stream is more likely to probably just do something that someone else has clipped for them, right? And this kind of feeds into this. You would never see a pro Greer thing from Michelangelo, right? That's just one of the greatest things about Skyfire that I was very proud of, is that we were covering every angle, right? A lot of these guys like Michelangelo and UP James, like they would never put something pro Greer. They would never clip something anti-Lue. Do you get what I'm saying? And like after years of this ecosystem, this environment, it changed. It's like this is how people are living in this like false reality.
Yeah,
but anyways,
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, he says, I've said it before and I'll say it again. The UFO Joe is the #1 follow on UFO X, formerly known as UFO Twitter. If you're on X and interested in the UFO topic and are not following Joe Murgia, you should be. You may not agree with Joe's methods or what his sources are saying about Lue Elizondo, but hopefully the full truth about that will emerge eventually. Over the last month or so since Lue's book was released, it definitely sounds like Lue Elizondo's former colleagues are not pleased with each other or specific claims he has been saying publicly. Why wait 7 years to start speaking up? ? No idea. I have no clue what is really going on behind the scenes. I'd also like to see them in more interviews if they have something to say about Lue or the topic. Anyways, Lue and all those OSEP ATIP guys all agree on one thing. There are hidden programs with proof of non-human craft and bodies, blah, blah, blah. I agree. But to answer your question, Michelangelo, and I think I did comment this, and it's an uncomfortable truth that people do not like. But the reason you haven't heard anything about this is because the people who've been raising this alarm have literally been like doxxed and harassed and ran out of the community, and like their reputations have been tarnished. You know, UFO Joe didn't even want to come on this stream. And I've only ever been nice to UFO Joe. And he was doing a lot of shitting on Skyfire News, I think at the direction of some of these people. It was always in line with something else, like when we posted that Gary Nolan thing. That was actually later verified that like Gary Nolan did. Long story, but like
they'll come to learn that. They'll literally just realize it. Like, oh, wait, maybe that's the reason why I didn't like those guys. I realize now that all the people who were attacking me were also feeding my head full of lies about the people I shouldn't listen to and stuff. Like, but it takes a while. It takes a while.
Yeah, and to Michelangelo's thing, right? Like why I even got on that beat is like, where is this call coming from? It's like, dude, all the people were saying this, like, we're literally persona non grata. And Michelangelo, I like you as a lot, dude. I'd actually love to talk to you and pick your brain about all this. Just not even this, but UFOs, but like, in a way, not to be pointing fingers, but like, when you're only clipping pro Lue Elizondo things and like you're never gonna clip a Jeremy McGowan interview, right? Like you could have clipped those, right? Like those are just UFO clips too, right? That could have been in the Twitter zeitgeist. You never clipped a Lue Reviews thing talking about any of, you know what I mean? Do you guys get what I'm saying of like this idea of like, where is this all coming from now? It's like, guys, there was a very sophisticated mechanism.
Yeah.
I get what you mean.
Well, they could have clipped, like, they never talked about the content or the value or the truth of what we were, the flags we were raising. They would just talk about like us as like drama kings or like detractors. You know what I mean? Like they never talked about the content of our argument.
Greenstreet and McGowan and Lue Reviews, these like real concerns people were raising about Lue and his claims and his credibility were all just chalked up to dumb drama. People are jealous of Lue, like, you know what I mean? Like really weird stuff.
Well, you could have had some people too that maybe seen the writing on the wall that if a lot of this were to come out to be true, dude, it would be a hell of a problem. And maybe they just didn't want to look at it. You know what I mean? It's like they didn't want to touch it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think and now it's just like too late. Here we got some more good cope. Tupa, do you want to read these? I don't know. I got
Yeah, I'd love to. Kelly Chase. It's hard not to notice how much people feel the need to hedge and apologize in advance just for daring to point out that the history of OSAP ATIP has never been less coherent, and that might actually present a problem. That shouldn't be controversial. That's just an objective statement of the situation as it stands. We await more information. When a movement, especially one whose goal is transparency, starts to believe that there are certain truths you can't tell in the name of protecting the cause, you've lost the plot. We need to toughen up. Yeah, because she knows what's coming. Why was she not questioning this earlier on?
It's a great way. And for people wondering, Kelly Chase does the UFO Rabbit Hole podcast. She's one of these UFO media people, you know, and this is why I fucking hate Lue, because there's a lot of people who I was really friendly with, but just like, you know, they just didn't want to believe that like the stuff I'm saying about Lue is true, and like kind of went all in on the other camp. I put her in that camp. She cited me in her first book, you know, and I actually do like her voice on it, but she kind of went in on some of this hatred that was going on with like, you know, some of these women that were getting harassed just because they're affiliated with someone.
Oh yeah, dude. She definitely mocked them. She minimized it.
Yeah.
She encouraged the people attacking. She gaslit that there was nothing happening. All the worst things you could do as a passive observer, quote unquote, as a leader in the community, as a woman in the community, someone who's probably actually against harassment and against, you know, sexual harassment of people. She's probably against those things. Yet when placed in the crosshairs of this particular group, she became impartial to it. I don't know how else to describe it. Passive. Very strange. Dude, I think this is the biggest cope I've seen in a long time. Shout out to Post Disclosure World. We're praying for you, bro. I don't know if Lue Elizondo embellished his leadership role at ATIP, and I'm not suggesting that he did, but I want to make an argument that I think is necessary. People embellish their resumes all the time to help themselves get jobs. If Lue did something similar, but for the sake of advancing disclosure, why is that a big deal? If you can help it, don't be a hypocrite. If you're willing to overlook resume embellishment in other situations, especially for personal gain, don't hold this to a higher standard. Just stop. We are praying for post-disclosure world UFO Jesus. I've never that's the craziest thing I've read since I read Lue Elizondo's response, or Lou Jimenez's response to Elizondo, just use me as a tool. This is the biggest tool statement I've read in a long time.
Yeah, we're praying for you, Ryan, UFO Jesus, post-disclosure world. I actually think you're a nice guy. He's definitely someone who I think has been caught up in the, like, he's intimidated and afraid to speak his mind. And I've seen him do this over the years when some of these things come up. And, you know, the guy just did like 50 days before Lou's book of like, and those are some of the screenshots of like, he was doing like every day leading up to Lou's book, like a personalized like countdown to Lou's book video. And
dude,
yeah,
he was excited, huh?
This is some next level cope. And I feel bad for the guy. There's a lot of really good people in this conversation. I think we're just kind of scared and nerdy and intimidated and like, just kind of like, let's just not rock the boat. Let's go with the flow. Let's not lose our access. And now it's like, yeah, dude, this state of cope here is just...
Yeah, it's definitely an access thing for sure. Yeah.
This is straight up propaganda. If you can help it, don't be a hypocrite. If you're willing to overlook resume embellishment in other situations, why hold Lue Elizondo to a higher standard than yourself? Like, this goes beyond. I've never been brought in front of like news cameras or on Joe Rogan talking about the. Imagine if you embellish something in your resume to get a job, and you find yourself on Joe Rogan, The Daily Show. You're releasing a book. At what point do you have to own that? At what point do you have to own? When are you going to come clean that none of this shit you're writing about you did? Like, he had years to do it. Years to do it. That's crazy.
Absolutely wild. And there's something I forgot to say on the Kelly Chase one too. Like, and actually, shoot, UFO Joe did it too, and I might want to do it. UFO Joe is straight up connecting KMF to Lue, and actually that might be worth doing. But either way, all these people are kind of acknowledging, and even Michelangelo and Kelly Chase here is in her own way. Like, it's hard to not notice how much people feel like the need to hedge, like that there's an element of like people not being able to really speak openly about very clear issues and like lies, you know what I mean? It's hard to not notice how much people feel the need to hedge and apologize in advance. It's like even all these people, like everyone, all the people who have been Lue lovers and are now finally starting to speak out, they all acknowledge that like there's this weird element of like narrative control. They won't go as far as to say, wow, Lue has a whole ass hate group that like doxes and harasses anyone who brings these questions, but they all throw in that knowledge of like, even Munook too, he was like, I'm probably going to get a lot of stuff from Lue fanboys about this. UFO Joe is saying, well, here's the kind of harassment and stuff I'm facing for speaking out against Lue. Kelly Chase, with her PR skills, is trying to like navigate, was it weave the needle or whatever, and like everyone in the community knows that like part of this is tied into this like weird intimidation into speaking about in the UFO truth movement, bro. In a let's hold the gatekeepers accountable movement. Isn't this hilarious?
Well, I'd say this too, man. With Stratton's book, we know that that's coming, right? I mean, I'm sure you're going to see more and more and more of this kind of turning around. But I would just suggest, man, no matter what happens with Stratton, dude, can we all just not jump on the train of a person again? Can we just kind of look at the data and see what's going on and stop picking sides with stuff? I mean, we need to not do this again. We need to not,
He's also a counter intel dude, right? He's and I hate that Lou's ruining it. Like I can never trust. I already was sketchy of him, but after just being friend centered and seeing the way the Lue thing has played out with Lue reviews and Greenstreet and us, it's just but yeah, no, I'm with you, and that's important to bring up too, because in this kind of vacuum that Lue is creating, people are going to want that. People are going to want, and this would be the perfect time for another just like Lue liar to just kind of rise up and be, you know what I mean? And
a new leader, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
and
opening
take
up.
all
Like,
that,
the throne is opening up for sure. Yeah.
Definitely good to keep that in mind of like, let's like no more fucking god kings, priest, and ufology. No one's beyond question. No one's beyond verifying their claims. You know what I mean? Like, this is insanity that we're here even. What do we got next? Oh, so this was another one. Pray for Lue, dude. Like I said, I went and added the goatee Lue to everything. So this is Kaleb Bench, right? Who he's part of Skinwalker Ranch. And if you guys don't know, Jay Stratton kind of works at Skinwalker Ranch now. So this is another testimony that we have since this book rollout. What a time to be alive in ufology. Lue's absolutely killing the tour. he's never been more places. Would you guys agree? Like he's definitely, I feel like maybe the first 2017 like weekend one, but since then, like this is insane, right? Like he's everywhere right now.
Yeah, Daily Show. That was wild to see him go on there. Yeah,
I'd be kind of down if we have time. I'd be down to watch that because that was a very interesting thing, and I did kind of like that. But yeah, So this is Kaleb Bench, who works with Jay Stratton at Skinwalker Ranch. We have another data point now of like, nah, dude, this kind of stuff is kind of really percolating up. So let's get this.
Did you talk to a Jay Stratton by any chance while you were there?
Oh yeah, I talk to Jay all the time.
How's he doing? And what are your thoughts on this whole stuff about the books being different, him and Elizondo's book?
And real quick, just before we get into it, we have Ben in the chat saying UFO Jane is #1. Where's UFO Jane? What happened to UFO Jane? She was literally doxxed and harassed by the Lue Elizondo fan club because of her affiliation with Lue Reviews. Everyone on that show has been doxxed and harassed, and everyone except Lue Reviews has basically left the community. And again, UFO Jane was researching UFOs for years before any kind of Elizondo came on the scene. Has, I think, some of the best research on the Stevensville and a lot of these Texas sightings that happened in like the 2000s to 2015 range. You know what I mean? So that's why I do what I do. That's why a lot of us talk about what we do, because these people, like, I went on Jane's show plenty of times. I would consider her a friend, especially back then. I feel bad that I didn't realize the extent of what was going on, what was happening to her, and I didn't stick up for her more then. But you know, these people are all gone. The whole landscape is artificial because you have people afraid to talk about it, and the ones who are still around are people like UFO Jesus and Kelly Chase, who are like basically playing ball. Like, it's so weird. But yeah, so that's on that. But real quick, back to Kaleb Bench. Boom.
I'd have to talk to them a little bit more, and obviously, like I've never spoken to Lue Elizondo or anything like that, but I just know I can tell you that Jay and Travis were pretty upset about some of the stuff he says, because they know, working with him, that he stretched the truth a lot. And that's where it's like I obviously have a little bit more bias, I guess, just because I know I've gotten to know Jay and Travis pretty well. And from what I've heard, not just from those two also, but from other people, that Lue has an issue with over exaggerating and adding to the story.
That was the same claim that Davis made, was that Lue exaggerated lots of stuff.
We've got Science Bob getting in on the mix now. I'm telling you, it's like it's like open season on Lue now. A lot of these people never would have said anything about Lue even a few months back.
It's crazy, ain't it, to see the shift in just a few weeks? It's really crazy.
Yeah. And I think we're going to see more and more of these people. Like I said, Colangelo, UFO Joe, Science Bob, Kelly Chase never would have said anything like this just a few weeks ago. And now it's just kind of like starting to avalanche. You don't see it going the other way, right? It's not like it's only the information flow is really only going one way towards one narrative that's like popping out. You know what I mean? But let's continue.
Yeah. My understanding is, so Jay outranked Lue at all times, and Lue was, they looked into it a little bit more to see what his job was, way back in the 80s, I guess, when he was, I guess the source where he's claiming a lot of this information from. And he was some kind of tech that just checked like databases or something like that. And they were able to really dive in and find out what his credentials were and all that. And a lot of stuff he kind of misled people and kind of lied about on a lot of stuff. But that's just what I've been able to find out myself. And that's where it's like, I don't want to seem like I'm trying to.
No, I mean, without going into details, Kaleb, like, are we talking like little lies, like just exaggerations here and there, like, kind of inflate the ego or inflate the story, make it a little bit better? Or are some of these like big ones that could be kind of damaging to the disclosure process?
Very damaging, like he can't help himself as a pathological liar kind of thing.
Oh shit.
So what do you think, guys? What did you think of this?
I think it's a really serious allegation.
Somebody who works with them basically every day, and it was just at this. I think a lot of these. I think what people also need to understand, a lot of these statements are co-signed by people who aren't making them. So Eric Davis, Jay Stratton, you know what I mean? And there's an element to that of like, okay, is it a trust move? But there's also an element of that of like, no, I think the people behind that want this messaging out there, and they're like using, like I said, the ways that they do to kind of like they're trying to embarrass Lue and kind of get him to just stop. You know, that's kind of the vibe I get.
I think you said it best. I think it's a one-way information highway that we're getting on this right now. And the other weird thing is that like Lue never really responds back in the way you would expect. He always just kind of praises everyone, right? He goes, "Oh, these are great guys. We were all in it together," right?
Oh yeah, and that might be a good little segue to what we got next. Actually, yeah, I'll do this one next. So here's whenever this comes up. Actually, wait. Actually, let's do it this way first. Here's Lue. Here's kind of the energy he hits people back with.
And I don't look. I don't take anything personally. I know Jim very well. He's a highly intelligent man. You know, I don't know the nuances of what happened, but you know,
music.
So these are real shots that were used in the News Nation piece, by the way.
That's not real.
No, he literally said there's music added. There's music added. But these are him responding to all these claims of Eric Davis, James Lacatski, all these people kind of saying like, "Yo, these things are checking out." But these are really what he said.
And I don't look. I don't take anything personally. I know Jim very well. He's a highly intelligent man. You know, I don't know the nuances of what happened, but you know, like I said, man, it's. I don't pay attention to the drama anyway. I don't like to get into the trenches of the he said, she said. It's. I don't think it's constructive. And at the end of the day, everybody deserves credit. Everybody has done of the he said, she said. It's silly. It's. I don't think it's constructive. And at the end of the day, everybody deserves credit. I don't pay attention to the drama anyways. And look, the reality here is we're all working towards the same thing, man. It's all about disclosure, right? And put egos aside, all that nonsense, because I don't pay attention to the drama anyways. You know.
First off,
that's a crazy shot right there.
What are up with the cinematography over at News Nation? First and foremost, did you guys catch these shots? The ones where he's like, look at these ones. Wait.
I don't like to get into the trenches.
Like that really was put in the News Nation piece of like, all right, we're gonna have you look down, and then we're gonna have you look up super menacingly. Like, I don't know. I'm not even trying to be a hater.
No, those are old heads, dude. Those are old ideas.
You see like fighters in the UFC like do promo shots like that, right? Where they look up and they're hitting their gloves together. It was very interesting, yeah.
And also kind of like this thing we see, and he kind of did with UFO Joe too, like, hey, there's some real serious questions about some of your claims being made from pretty credentialed people who were also part of this conversation, right? Not just Tupa and Panda and Terrestrial on a podcast, but like James Lacatski, the guy who's the most documented person of actually running the program, Jay Stratton, your old boss. And he just always sits with like, oh, I don't really pay attention to the drama, which is something we always see this group do, right? Like serious concerns are always diminished down to dumb drama. And it's like, bro, this isn't dumb drama. Like, you should probably address this. Like, you know what I mean? It's so gaslighty. Yeah. And yeah, that probably gonna get copyright on that music, but I figured it was probably worth it, right? Like, I don't pay attention to the he said, she said. It's like, dude, these are like, it's literally like you, Lue. Like you're the he said, she said. Lue said this about what you work. Like that first graphic I made. Okay, let's. We got a few more left, and then we'll close it out here.
There's a lot of discussion about whether Jay Stratton is writing a book. Can't say right now, but I suspect.
Oh, you can't say.
I can't say, but I think we'll probably hear something about that soon. Real soon.
That's great.
And and there are going to be differences. That's going to be. But the real problem stems from the very first story about this. That New York Times story was incredibly important. It opened up everything. It changed UFO world forever, but it got things wrong. Now, ATIP didn't get $22 million from Harry Reid. It didn't, and that mistake, that error has never been corrected, and it gets repeated every day, every single day. And that's where a lot of that confusion stems from. So, maybe someday there will be a formal correction of that. I'm not holding my breath.
So yeah, this basically we're pretty much just about done.
Wild.
Let's do. We got. Oh yeah, so we got one more after this. But yeah, what do you think about this? Knapp basically. I think he said there's going to be differences in the books. Like he's still not willing to. They're not willing to be like Lue's a liar yet. But they're like, oh yeah, there's some discrepancies and like very.
Because they let this guy bully them for years. They got cornered. Yeah.
Too, right? How can you be like? Actually, yeah, I knew it was all. Like messy.
Well, I mean, at some point, I would imagine, especially if the stories do really contradict heavily, these guys are going to have to make a choice, right? They're going to have to choose where they're going to go with it. They're not going to be able to play the fence on the middle of it.
That's right.
So I'll be honest with you, I would hate to be in their shoes right now with this situation.
Oh yeah, there's only really one choice to make, right? Like, and especially adding all this hate group stuff and the crimes that are like really starting to be prosecuted, and like, there's only one choice.
Dude, if they abandon Lue, they open themselves up to a huge risk because they're tied to this stuff too.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Lue has the whole community in some kind of weird Mexican standoff, and especially the people who help prop him up along the way, right? Like you can't just be like, this guy's a liar, and also I helped prop him up these past 7 years. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I mean, you look at the controversy, dude. We're not talking about like some forums online about people arguing. This is on a national, international scale now, dude. I mean, this is a huge platform that this sits on right now. It's different than how it used to be back in the 90s and 80s, right?
Yeah, and it's all tied together. And yeah, let's close out with what our friends of the show, Thomas Fessler. What do you think his response to all this was?
I wonder.
All right, let's see.
There's been a lot of statements that have come out from Michelle Stratton, Jay Stratton's wife, that have been very how do you put it?
Yes,
very
off the beaten path.
Off the beaten path, and they're going against the general narrative that we've heard about Lue and other things that have been going on. So there's some bad blood going on out in public view at this point. We've also had... Go ahead.
Thomas, you know very well that you cannot judge a person by what their wife, who's off the deep end, is doing or saying publicly. It shouldn't be a direct reflection on them. But I could also make a point, which I know you are personally well aware of. Sometimes, even if you have a crazy wife, that has nothing to do with what you're doing or who you are, does it? It doesn't. That's my point.
Well, it technically does, because sometimes when you're married to a person, it is essentially a legal business partnership you have with somebody. Michelle Stratton did not work with Lue Elizondo or Travis Taylor.
Correct.
Michelle Stratton heard all the stories coming from her husband of all the shit that was going on. So her view and perspective.
All right, so they basically go with the Michelle Stratton's crazy approach. This is one of Lue Elizondo's favorite media outlets. Were you surprised by this, Tupa, that they went for the tried and true?
Yeah.
This person's actually just having a mental episode. Didn't they just do this to us like a day before this?
Yeah, that's exactly. I definitely suspected this. She's just crazy, and then the little like leaving a door open for Jay. So they're basically saying, Jay, just throw your wife under the bus, and we can pretend this never happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't think I got the balls to go after somebody's wife or even make statements like that at all. Like that's shocking, dude. Right?
It is. It is. Well, damn, man. This is a really good outline of the fracture that has occurred in the upper tier of ufology and this UAP disclosure effort. Right? This is surprising, disappointing for sure, but good that this is out in the open, man.
What's the next flip, guys? And yeah, we're closing out here. Who's the most like? Who's gonna be the next person that was like? Big Lue guy that's going to be like, oh, you know what? Some of this stuff is in check. Is it going to be Corbell and Knapp?
There's been a lot of statements that have come out from.
I think it could easily be Corbell and Knapp. You know, it's going to be at this point people who want to preserve their their reputation, people who still have big plans in ufology, people who still have a book to sell or a podcast to run, and they're going to try to get in front of this, and they're going to be like, okay, yeah, it's time to question this stuff, and they're going to hope no one brings up any of they're probably going back and deleting old tweets. I bet you right now people are going back and deleting their like supportive tweets of Elizondo in certain aspects, people who are in the know.
Oh, 100%. 100%, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably a good pick, Tupa. Could you imagine starting to see some streams from them, starting to back away, starting to hear it? Man, what a crazy time we're in, huh?
What a mess. We literally, in my opinion, my assessment of the situation is we have a madman pathological liar who, in the same time we've gone farther than we've ever gone as a community and disclosure, has just taken all the craziest cult dynamics and Rick Doty counter intel dynamics and mashed them all together in this like crazy train wreck that we're all watching. And I think me and Tupa can have an idea of where it's all headed. And I think we're just kind of like waiting patiently for it to like get to where we think it's going. But crazy time to be alive.
Red, I never would have suspected this. I never would have thought that they would be fracturing from within at all.
I thought that, yeah.
Well, like to this degree, though, I mean, you know, we've been on this.
I was early on that McGowan thing. I was like, something's happening, dude. Like a year ago.
That's true. Yeah, like tired of cleaning up Lue's shit was weird because we didn't really even know exactly what was happening or how tied in this guy was with this particular group. But you know, I predicted it. I said when this book comes out, it's going to be a lot more sunlight's going to be on this, so it could get really bad. It could go both ways, right? And now we know which way it's gone for him. And this narrative is being pushing. This is getting wild. UFO Joe, Michelangelo, post-disclosure world.
Dude, it's I'll lose people. But yeah, Hobby in the chat, 2 more likes to get to 100. Yeah, if you're watching this or watch this from the future, leave a like, leave a comment. Also subscribe to my friends here who I had join me, Tupacabra, Presto Material. I put all their stuff in the link in the description. Do you guys want to show anything real quick before you get out of here?
Oh, yeah. Go check out the UFO Timeline on Twitter or X, or go to the ufotimeline.com. There's some big news coming out about that to get it in everybody's hands here fairly soon. So I'm excited to make those announcements. Just go check them out if you want to follow it up. But yeah, thanks, Red. This has been dope.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Red. This presentation you put together was very cool, dude. Very cool.
Oh yeah, Brad. What do you got going on? I know what you covered, the new Sarah Gam lady who came out from UAPTF.
Yeah.
What else?
Yeah,
you
I
got
went over
coming up
that.
here?
Tomorrow I'm gonna take a look at the UAPDA. Obviously, that got smushed.
Yeah, real quick. What's the quick TLDR on that? Because yeah, UPDA low key dead, right?
Yeah, I mean, I really wasn't surprised. To be honest with you, like after the show is really when I'm gonna go do a lot more looking at it at that point. But it's just a couple of small little details that got through. Supposedly, the rumor is that maybe the UAPDA got or the NDAA got pushed really quick. Like they wanted to expedite the process. Maybe that's a big part of why it got ran over. I don't know. I'll have more on it tomorrow on my channel. I do 1 p.m. EST. I kind of go over on Sundays, like the latest news in ufology. I give my opinions on and takes on it. So I'll do that tomorrow at 1 p.m. Yep.
Hell yeah, man. Well, I'll probably see you guys all on the thing. All this Lue hate is eating you guys young. It's only damaging the disclosure process. I'm out. Pied Tom, enjoy the cult. We'll be here when you wake up. But yeah, peace out, everyone.
Peace, man. Take care.
Yes. Have a good night, everybody.